Oh, and my camera's not here. Wonderful. Oh, boy. Oh, give me a second, everybody. Let me figure out what the heck happened to my camera. As usual, it's not here. That one. Oh, it's in neither places. Wonderful. Oh, that's why, because it's not that one. It's this one. All right, we are set to go. Let's get back into the studio and turn off the other camera that's there that I turned on. Ultra Studio, Ultra Studio. Oh, you try to do it right. Gary's not here either. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, everybody. I'm Thomas Fessler, your host. This is Disclosure tonight. Yes, we're jumping right into this live because, lo and behold, I go and I sleep in for one day. Well, one day a week, and wake up to things blowing up, literally things blowing up over Lake Huron, thanks to an F-16 West?
Yep, F-16 with a Sidewinder missile.
Yes, I know. It's just one of those things we got to take a look at. If I bring up right now, if I can go ahead and see if I can find what we've got for some radar showing on what's going on with that part of the United States right now. If I bring up the window, there we go. Let's go to a zoomed-in format so we can check this out a little bit easier. Let me make the chat looking a little bit nicer here. Give me a second, folks. I just have to arrange some names. West Decker, almost there, in a little bit to the right, close enough. Good to see you, Wes. Thanks for coming out here today. Happy frickin' Sunday to you. So what we're looking at right now behind me is a map of Lake Huron and pretty much all the Great Lakes. Let me go ahead and just shrink it across, make it a little bit easier for everybody to go ahead and see here, and make my big head a little bit smaller like it usually is. Probably got sleepy eyes right now. Remember always to like and subscribe to our broadcast here on Disclosure tonight. We try to bring the latest and greatest news into it. So what we're looking at here now, folks, is a map of, the Great Lakes. We've got Lake Michigan, followed by Lake Huron. And you can see we've got an overall craft that are going and circling, and those are tankers. And we're going through, as you can see here, it's a Boeing KC 135T Stratotanker. Oh, I remember those. There was a whole big, isn't that like a 737, West?
I think it's larger than that. It's got double the engines. And...
or is it a 757? Either way, they were taking the 757 or 737 platform, and they were modifying them into Boeing KC-135T Stratotankers, and this was a big hullabaloo a couple of years ago between the United States, or between Boeing and Airbus, saying that Boeing had gotten unfair advantage for the contracts. Either way, what we're dealing with here is an octagon-shaped UFO, which was reportedly shot down this morning by an F-16 jet fighter from the United States. This is the fourth UFO that's been shot down across the United States in the last, is it 3 days now? Well, United States and Canada, North America. We had
3 UFOs in 3 days.
Well, no, we had one initially over Alaska.
The balloon that was over.
Right. And then we had two that were over Canada that were taken down.
We saw two in our video,
right,
but there was only one reported shot down.
Correct, yes. And then there was another one late last night that was taken down over Montana. That's number
Actually, an update on that. Sorry. I just saw that they believe that they did not engage the one last night over Montana. They broke off because they couldn't visually confirm it. Today, they're reporting that the object they took down over Lake Huron may be the same object that was over Montana.
Interesting. So in bringing up a map and just going ahead and taking a look at the distance of what we're talking about, let's bring that up on the screen, shall we?
I've also got breaking news on that object. Reports are just coming in that the object was octagonal, had something like strings hanging down from it, but no detectable means of surveillance.
Right.
And that's what we've got so far. That's from an administration official.
So taking a look at the map of the United States behind us, we're talking about something that was initially seen up here right along the border between the United States and Canada and Montana. And they put up a 50 square mile area around it where they basically locked away any commercial flight going operations are going on as they went and launched craft from, I believe it was the nearby Maelstrom Air Force Base, tankers, etc. So we've gone from seeing things up in Montana, it's moved across the width of the United States, going across, and we're now looking at something over in the Lake Huron area. So let's go ahead and take a jump back to that map again that I had up to give you some context again. Going from Montana yesterday across to Lake Huron, and the other sightings we had were up in Alaska yesterday, which we had were up in this area. Now, it's interesting to see how this, if you want to call it, situation continues to evolve on yet a daily basis. Let's go ahead. Looks like we got a super chat that came in. Sorry if I'm just trying to get everything rolling here, folks. I appreciate the super chat that we just got in. Our disclosure tonight is 100% viewer funded. I want to thank Ant-Man for that wonderful super chat. Is that another one? Can't be. Or do I have my chat screwed up? It is the same one. All right, let's go ahead and bring this across. And I want to thank people for the wonderful support. Is it one or two by Ant-Man? West?
Looking, I see one.
We got one here. It came up twice. Well, we got a super chat coming in from the Ant-Man. I want to thank you that, sir. Let's get some music up. Get across to the regular soundboard for this. Frequent. Let's go ahead and just double check. Yes, thanks, Ant-Man, for the wonderful support of Disclosure tonight. That's right. Every dollar that comes into Disclosure tonight goes back into our production fund. We're very grateful for everyone coming out here today. More importantly, so grateful for everyone's love and support for the channel. We've got another super chat coming in from Constantine Dante. Can't stay, but we'll watch later. Great coverage of what's been going on. Thomas and panel just hope they are real. Well, they're real enough to be going ahead and bring out F-16s, F-22s, F-35s to go ahead and take these shapes down over the last several days. We've got a bunch of news to cover as we get into the day, and this is an evolving story. What a great Super Bowl Sunday. I expected to sleep in, get up, and start watching some good football and commercials, but nope, we're back in the newsroom covering some really important things that, like I always say, if something's going to go on, we'll crank up and we will cover it. It seems to be a lot of interest from this across YouTube and beyond. Thank you very much for everybody coming out. Let's clear that out and let's shut that down and get our usual sound effect of the newsroom in the back. Breaking news, absolutely. So let me bring up the news board and everything right now. It's been a crazy morning, West.
Yeah, it has. A couple other points to bring up. China also reported that they had an unidentified object flying over coastal waters of China that they were planning on intercepting. There's debate about the authenticity of that report, but worth mentioning. And the other thing is that there are reports that the White House is privately assuring people that these are not extraterrestrial, but they concede that the longer this goes on with them not being able to assign providence, that speculation is growing.
Right. I mean, this is
extraterrestrial doesn't mean that it's not ultra-terrestrial.
You read my mind on that one, Wes. Yes, we know the difference between ultra-terrestrials and extraterrestrials is literally that extraterrestrials come from another planet, whereas ultra-terrestrials could be coming from our planet, an ancient civilization that's been here all along. Potentially, could this be something where whatever's going on, they're letting themselves be taken down?
That's kind of my feeling.
Yeah. It's an interesting situation as the chat builds. Let me go ahead and bring in some of the next stories. We've got that one. We've got one here coming from CNN. Let me bring this up. We got a story from CNN. We'll get up the news queued up here as well in a second. Let me get that up as I'm bringing this up. Let me bring up Safari. Let's go ahead and bring up this breaking story from earlier this morning on CNN as well. Great coverage going around everywhere, more than we'd ever expect.
Really can't make this shit up right now, guys.
BBC yesterday.
Do this hour dramatic.
Here we go. Good old Jim Acosta. Remember, this is what you would call a bipartisan.
They're doing something.
What the hell? Oh, yeah. This is a bipartisan issue that we're dealing with right now, so we will be covering stories from both sides of the aisle, both CNN and Fox, and wherever else it's covering it with credible coverage, including from the United Kingdom and beyond. Let's go ahead and get this coverage up. This is just from 4 hours ago.
Details about the unidentified object shot down by fighter jets just miles off the coast of Alaska yesterday. Unlike the Chinese spy balloon shot down last Saturday, this object demanded more immediate action yesterday. Officials say it was flying much lower at 40,000 feet, making it a dangerous potential threat to civilian aircraft. But now we are learning that U.S. military pilots who approached the craft have given conflicting accounts of what they saw. This new reporting coming in now from CNN national security reporter Natasha Bertrand. Natasha, so this is interesting. This is kind of unusual that these pilots saw different things, and that is sort of, I guess, adding to the mystery of all this.
Yeah, not even the pilots apparently were really able to identify what they saw. And just to take you back for a sec, on Thursday, the U.S. defense officials sent F-35 fighter jets up to try to figure out what this object was that was flying around near Alaska. Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that.
Design.
Other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this has all added to the Pentagon's wariness of describing in more detail what this object actually is until they can get more information through the debris that they are recovering right now.
And what do we know about the efforts to recover the wreckage of this second object? It looks like NORAD just put out an email a short time ago, and it sounds like they're trying to recover it.
They did, and what we were told yesterday is that the object was shot down over frozen water, so it landed on the ice, essentially. We don't know what kind of condition it's in, whether it is intact, for example, but recovery efforts have been launched, and according to the Defense Department, they have been able to recover a significant amount of debris. Now, notably, they still don't know what this object is, where it came from, or even what direction it was headed in, or what direction it came from. It is just all very murky at this point, but they do say that the FBI is going to be taking the lead on analyzing the debris. If that sounds familiar, it's because just last week we saw that another Chinese spy balloon, I should say a Chinese spy balloon, because we don't know what this one actually is,
right,
was shot down, also being analyzed by the FBI. But right now, there are just so many more questions than answers, Jim.
Yeah, and as the hours go on, it gets more and more mysterious. All right, Natasha Bertrand, thank you very much. Let's bring in former CIA operative Bob Baer. Bob, I mean, this is starting to sound like something out of the X-Files. I don't want to get carried away here, but what do you make of these different assessments coming in from the pilots of what they saw?
Well, Jim, the speed of those airplanes, F-35s, it's no wonder they all saw different things. And as far as intercepting communications to that vehicle, it's very difficult. I don't want to get too technical, but it could be, frequency hopping, the propulsion. There's so many questions out there.
Yeah, but frequency hopping, yes, but frequency hopping does not go out and literally jam radar, does it, West? Because I believe...
Apologies, I was muted. No, and I watched this report earlier, and the guy kind of acts like a CIA shill, to be honest, though he does admit at the end of this interview that they saw a Mach 6 aircraft at one point that they never were able to explain. I got another update for us if you want. They're now reporting from CBS that this object had disappeared off radar last night over Montana. They were able to reacquire it, and NORAD tracked it moving over Michigan and made the call to shoot it down after President Biden was alerted. He gave him the okay. Also, the two aircraft that were in the area, the tanker and the AWACS, are returning to their bases.
Interesting. So they're returning the AWACS. That's the radar plane for going ahead and tracking it down. It sounds like they feel comfortable with whatever was there. They've taken out at this point.
Yep. One thing I also heard in one of the reports is that some officials are reporting that the reason that we are seeing more is they removed certain filters on their radar systems, and that may be why we are acquiring these targets all of a sudden.
Yes, and again, for those who aren't familiar with that, what Wes is talking about is that all radar systems that are looked at by humans in the United States, whether it's the FAA, the Air Force, the Space Force, all have filters, and they're filtering out all information except for the data they want the operators to see. So there's more stuff there. There are more things going on that, no eyes on it. There's no one to report anything, is there, West?
Exactly. And we've heard reports in the past that this was part of the problem, that it wasn't that necessarily our systems couldn't track it, but that simply our people who were running these systems had decided that these objects were not of interest and had filtered them out. It seems now pressure from the public and Congress has caused them to reevaluate that, probably due to that Chinese balloon. I think LM was mentioning the other day how important that was to, going back and even looking through our past data. And that's how they discovered we'd had several other balloon overflights over the last several years.
So potentially what I was discussing last night or yesterday afternoon with regards to the situation, that if the Chinese have been going and investigating, the phenomena, just like the United States has, they may have found ways to cloak their craft in ways with signals intelligence to go ahead and prevent them from being seen on our radar. And if so, this could be, well, if we've taken down so many Chinese craft, if it turns out to be that over the United States, we're heading towards a really bad time ahead of us. That's all I have to say. With that going on China on the one side of the world, and then Russia, the Nord Stream 2 getting blown up by Biden, where that's going to head. So everything's happening at the same time. It's amazing. Let's go ahead and continue on with this video. I have CNN queued up as well for a current feed. We'll check onto that and see where we're at. Let me continue on. Morning, Avi.
You're absolutely right. Not until they actually go through the debris and see what it's made of and what it looks like in the communications. Obviously, there was some sort of propulsion system that was driving that vehicle. And don't forget, NORAD with Doppler radar is probably going back and looking at where it came from and see if they can track it back to, I don't know, China.
But remember, it's a propulsion system, but they're not seeing any visual signs of propulsion, are they, West?
No. In fact, the pilots reported that they could find no visible means of propulsion when they got close.
Right. And looking at that to a degree, we're kind of looking at, if that's really what's going on, we're looking at a really interesting situation. So, no visual means of propulsion means visual, but that also means from their sensors, from their FLIRs that pick up heat signatures, doesn't it?
Exactly. And that's the same thing that, Commander Fravor reported with the Tic Tac.
Yeah. An amazing day. Let's continue on with this here.
Our dramatic new details about the unidentified object shot down by fighter jets just miles off the coast of Alaska yesterday. Unlike the Chinese spy balloon shot down last Saturday, this object demanded more immediate action yesterday. Officials say it was flying much lower at 40,000 feet, making it a dangerous potential threat to civilian aircraft. But now we are learning that U.S. military pilots who approached the craft have given conflicting accounts of what they saw. This new reporting coming in now from CNN national security reporter Natasha Bertrand.
Wait a second,
Natasha.
Wait a second. I've
Russia,
got
wherever.
This is kind
but
of
it is.
Unusual.
It's a great mystery. I'm absolutely
saw
fascinated
different
by
things,
this.
and that is.
Hold on, I've got the wrong video playing here. Hold on a second.
Yeah, not even the pilots.
Jesus Christ! Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, one U.S. official tells us there was no obvious surveillance equipment on board. Some of this is the initial information, initial reporting that comes in, and I suppose things change as they assess what they have on the ground or on the ice there. What does that tell you if that ends up being the case?
Well, there's a couple of things that I take away from this, and if it's a foreign-made object and it was sent from a place like China or Russia, it's some sort of provocation against us. I can't imagine a vehicle like this would give the Chinese or the Russians a real intelligence advantage of collecting photographs or signals or things like that. But I think what bothers NORAD and the White House is these probes. We now know there was, a total of 5 balloons, Chinese balloons that have come over the United States. Why are the Chinese doing this? Who's ordering it? And why would you do it right before Blinken, the Secretary of State, is on his way to Beijing? That makes no sense to me. Is the with the balloon, was the Chinese military struck out on its own? So all of these questions, analysts at the CIA and the White House are looking through this and trying to piece this together. Remember, these balloons are flying over 40 places across the world, these Chinese balloons, and there are a lot of aerial vehicles I've been involved in before we've never been able to identify from radar. One we saw, I remember I was involved in, was going Mach 6, which made no sense at all to anybody. And eventually it was just shelved and we couldn't figure it out.
Wow. And I guess, the question that you're leading me to with the comments on China is that we have one of two situations, I suppose. One is they're just trying to provoke the U.S. to see what the response might be. The other would be that Xi and the military might not be on the same page, that the folks who want to try to conduct diplomacy with the United States are not on the same page as the military. Could that be it?
Exactly. The People's Liberation Army is very difficult to understand, and would they act in non-accordance with Xi? We don't know. I mean, is China close to some sort of military takeover with all these COVID protocols that close down the economy? These are very hard questions to answer. And for American intelligence, getting inside these circles is nearly impossible. It's always been impossible. But it's certainly something the analysts are picking through right now.
Interesting piece going on there. Let's jump right along there. I just want to get a quick couple shout outs here for some of the support that's coming into Disclosure tonight as this theme. Oh, shit. Stop. There we go. Let's go ahead and get to our next piece. So I want to quickly thank some more super chats that have come in. One coming from Wildcat Mahone saying, OCTAGON, for fuck's sake. Absolutely. Royal Morning Blue, evening Royal Morning Blue. Good to see you here. Always great to have shortwave communication coming in from our friends across the pond in the United Kingdom. Mr. Catfish 2100, a lot of like-minded individuals to unite tonight. Cheers. Absolutely. Fine. Coming in, talking about this, trying to figure out exactly where we're at and what we're dealing with. I appreciate all the support and all the everything coming in from the chat. Remember, Disclosure tonight is 100% fan-funded. We appreciate every dollar that comes in because everyone goes back into the show. Thank you very much. We appreciate all your love and support. In the meantime, we have had a couple more people join us in the back. LM, Lee, you're here as well. Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon, Thomas. Yep, just trying to sit back and observe, watch and listen.
Absolutely. And Greg O'Brien is here as well. Greg, how the heck are you? Coming to us from the East Coast.
Hi, everybody. I find it a telltale sign that are any of these other objects flying over any other nations or just the U.S.? I did hear a report earlier that Chinese had spotted something off their coast, but that just might be, false information by them just to, ease the kettle a little bit.
Yeah, so far it's just Canada, U.S., and then that one report over China, like you mentioned, Greg.
Okay, so just North America, really. So I think that's a really telltale sign, don't you guys?
There may be an explanation for it, though. It could be that our radar systems, with the filters removed, are more capable of detecting this than other governments. Just a guess.
Wow, that's a good guess. I mean, yeah, that's a great possibility.
Yeah. On that note, let's go ahead. We've got CNN in progress right now. I was able to get up
real quick.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to do a quick welcome to all of our new viewers. It looks like we've got 624 people watching at the moment. And
wow.
Just wanted to say thank you, and please feel free to like and subscribe. This is a great channel, and welcome you in here. Yeah,
as a lot of people may not know, we cover the phenomenon on a regular basis here. Disclosure tonight covers what's been going on heavily since 2017 when Lou Elizondo helped break the word of disclosure, what's been going on in the cover-up from the Pentagon in the United States of America. We cover all usually in a kind of a news format, breaking information related to the phenomena, and this is nothing like it. So it's not like we're a regular news program with pundits coming in talking about it like we're going to have from CNN. We've got some people who've been digging into this and researching it for many years. Let me go ahead, and if you could do us a favor, please share and like this, and subscribe to our broadcast. We appreciate everyone who's coming by, and let's see what we can do out. Go forward next. Jenny Novak, thanks a lot. Thank you very much for that super chat, Jenny, and we greatly appreciate it here. On that note, let's jump into this.
Thomas, real quick, a tweet from Senator Kristen Gillibrand, if you want to cover it.
Let's do it. Can you send me you got a link? We can bring it up as well if you're going to read it.
You got it. I will send it to you right now.
Sure. Yeah, I need to find my Twitter view here. I suppose I could bring that up over here. Why not?
And while you're at it, Thomas, will you throw it up so we can see it in the back too?
That's what I was going to do. Oh, you should be able to see the camera there. How are you going to send it to us on me?
To iChat.
iChat. Got it. Thank you, sir. Yes. We have a bunch of different medias going here for sharing all the information. There we go. Let me go and copy that. I want to go to here to Twitter because I don't want it to open the Twitter app. Let's get to this. What we're coming up with is a tweet coming to us from Senator Kristen. Forget him. As a troll. All right, let me zoom this up a bit bigger so we can take a look at it. First of all, let's see. This is coming from Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. I believe she represents New York in the Senate. She's a Democrat, but either way, we have to remember this is a topic that is purely bipartisan. It's great to see both sides of the aisle working towards this. Kristen is saying this is exactly why we need to be studying unidentified aerial phenomenon and why I fought to increase interagency cooperation and reduce stigma for reporting sightings. Because we're collecting and studying the data, we're able to detect these incursions and protect our skies. She was replying to a tweet from Mr. Edward Wong, who was saying U.S. General says Pentagon didn't detect some intrusions by Chinese spy balloons in prior administrations. He called it a, quote, domain awareness gap, end quote. U.S. analysts uncovered these events after 2020 during review of the UFO phenomena with Julian Barnes, etc. So, Julian Barnes, yeah, take this and shove it. Let's take a look at this. The biggest thing we have to realize is Lou Elizondo has been calling this as dealing with the phenomena as one of the biggest threats to our national security. And clearly that's what we're seeing today. We've got craft coming in the United States, in Canada, going across North America, maybe more than we realize that have been there maybe for some time. And now they took off the filters and gee, gosh, look at that. We've got a bunch more out here. It's a crazy day, but let's jump across to CNN.
Another quick request.
Yes, sir.
Could you send the video feed from the show back to Google Meet?
I'm not.
No, we're not seeing it at the moment.
You should. I'll probably turned it off some way. Let me get back in here. I had it on before. Now give me a second here, guys. Settings. Go to video. Oh, that's why it puts you across to there. There you go, guys. Can you see it now?
No.
Oh, it says camera failed.
Where it goes. We're good.
You got it? Good. All right, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and get this next clip coming in from live, a little bit delayed feed coming in from CNN.
Look at what the system actually is, how it connects with the other systems that were shot down earlier, if it does connect at all. Those are the kinds of questions that I have right now. I also note one other thing, if I may, and that's the relatively low altitude that this thing was flying at. 20,000 feet is absolutely within the realm of commercial aircraft, and that's extremely dangerous from a commercial aviation perspective. And the skies over Michigan are fairly well populated, so it's definitely something that needed to be taken care of.
And Juliet, I want to get your reaction to this. Another day, another shoot down of a so-called object.
I want to put this in the categories of what we know and what we don't know. So what we know is that since the Chinese balloon incident a week ago, and learning of other infiltrations by the Chinese of the balloon in years past, essentially NORAD, Northcom, and other agencies essentially what you call opened up the aperture of what they were looking for. So they're getting lots of positives that they did not get before. Most of that is going to be known airplanes, whatever it may be, but there are now going to be lots more things that sort of raise the level of concern. So that's the first thing we know. These positives were anticipated, more positives. What we can't answer now is this sort of bigger aperture picking up lots of stuff that has essentially been forgiven, sort of, around in the skies, whatever else it is, because it didn't pose a threat? Or is it part of something organized for whatever surveillance? I do want to, so we don't know. And I would just want to pick up on what the congressman who was on before us, to speculate about China in all of these incidents is just, I'm sorry, it is just not right now. We do not know what these objects are. Two are described as VW size. One is now octangle. We don't know if there's balloons attached to them. So we need to just sort of understand what's going on. There's a wider lens of surveillance that is picking up things. We don't quite know what they are. And our tolerance for it after what happened with China is lower. We're going to shoot it down if it is unmanned, if it's hurting commercial or a threat to commercial aviation, and if shooting it down will not harm Americans in the homeland. That is essentially what's going on. The speculation is really premature at this stage.
And Colonel, you talked a little bit about civilian airspace. Clearly, these could potentially pose a threat to civilian aviation. Is there any way to really secure the skies against these kinds of objects?
Well, it's certainly a challenge, Paula. And, when we look at how we've secured the skies in the past, we've sometimes used draconian measures such as shutting things down in the wake of 9/11, for example, until we had a reasonable handle on what was flying in our airspace. Certainly, I don't advocate anything like that at this particular point in time. The danger to commercial aviation is, I would say, minimal at this point, but it is something that has to be taken into account. And airmen of all types, civilian as well as military, have to be on the lookout for unusual objects right now. I think the heightened awareness on the part of everybody becomes really important. But having an ironclad, control mechanism for space, that's practically an impossibility, but we can certainly do a better job knowing what's in the air, and I think NORAD has certainly picked up the baton at this point in time, a little bit late, but still better late than never.
Does seem they're a little slow, but they're on it now. All right, Juliet and Colonel, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Jan. Appreciate the quick super chats coming in
here.
here.
And stay with CNN for the latest.
Let me go ahead and pause that for a second. I want to thank a couple more super chats coming in from our viewers, coming in from our regulars, Jan and both NeoCal. We appreciate every dollar that comes into Disclosure tonight. It helps keep our show going and pay. Basically we're a fan-funded broadcast. We appreciate the support from everybody in our audience. Let me make sure that that's.
Hey, Thomas, I got another great
clip
that just came in over Twitter that I put in the chat for you.
Sure. Yes, sir. LM, go ahead. Will I bring that up?
I just wanted to kind of point out some of my observations real quick, kind of establishing this threat narrative based off of what these unknowns are and their decision-making to shoot them down. It seems like they're really hanging tight on whether or not it is a threat to civil aviation.
Right.
So when we had the sighting, I guess it was yesterday evening in Montana, it got dark and they decided that the fighters couldn't really track it as well at night. They need more daylight. So they left it alone and they didn't pursue it over the course of the night. That probably also had something to do with the fact that civil aviation routes are really not dense or populated or flying at that time. And I'm bringing this up because I think it's important to show where their threat narrative is right now. So I don't believe people should freak out and think that this is an ultimate threat. Ultimately, what their decision to shoot down hinges, to me, in my observation, that it could potentially get in the way of any air traffic.
Yes, absolutely. As you're talking about this, I know I've got a video in here, and I can show an example of that exactly. Let me see if I can find one of the clips here, and I can go ahead and go ahead.
They're not going to respond for now until that threat parameter changes. They're not going to be responding to these things during nighttime. Or low visible light.
Right. Well, potentially if these things are having some ability not to show up within our radar systems, someone's either found a hole in our radar systems where things aren't getting detected even with the filters turned off. So it's, a really interesting situation. Now, just quickly, as you were talking about a second ago, before we jumped to this tweet, I have a FLIR thermal cam video here that was taken over Northwest Washington on October 28th, 2019. This is from a friend of Disclosure Tonight's, who's a phenomenal imaging expert specializing in the phenomena. This is actually a video that was taken directly overhead, and the first thing you're going to see as this starts to go is there is your commercial airliner going across the screen at this point, and then not that much longer after, about 2 minutes later, after the commercial airliner goes over at the same altitude, it's let me bring out a pic so you can see this a little bit better. We've got a triangular craft that's being picked up, moving at approximately, that's invisible to the eye. It's a V-shaped craft, and we've got another video of this craft itself that by itself, and you can see it's at the same height, completely invisible, but looking at it through a thermal camera, we're picking up its temperatures somewhere between -40 and -60 degrees Fahrenheit. So do these craft commonly go ahead and fly where our airlines are? Absolutely. Now I've got a different video here I can probably bring up, one that's a little bit clearer of the same location shooting up, and we've got the same kind of a thing going on, except in this particular case, we've got a small V-shaped craft that actually has, I'll move along the camera as we go along with it, it actually has, as you can see it, there is, oh, you can't see it there, shit. Let me move this over so you can see it better. Okay, bring this around. What you've got is you've got a V-shaped craft that actually has an orb in tandem moving along with it as it moves directly across the screen. Now, people say, you know, these things aren't that common. They really are. Just some of them we can't see visually, but they're actually there. Now, whether or not our government is actually taking the blinders off and looking for these things, that's another question altogether. I would hope they are. Let's go ahead and now take a look at this message coming on from Steve Lookner, saying from an MSNBC national security analyst, full transparency from the U.S. government is required. I worked in the intelligence community for 26 years, and I can't remember anything like this. Either we are being invaded by aliens, the Chinese have stealth balloons all over the place, or the DOD is crazy trigger happy and shooting anything that looks weird. This is coming from a story from Washington, coming from Associated Press. U.S. officials, unidentified object shot down over Lake Huron on Sunday over Alaska and Canadian Downing. So it's a really interesting, evolving situation. Yes, West?
Breaking news, Pentagon has just stated that the object shot down on Sunday was a threat due to its potential surveillance capabilities. Pentagon says object flew in proximity to sensitive U.S. military sites.
But then again, we do have military sites everywhere, don't we?
Yeah, indeed we do.
Yeah.
And it's in contradiction to what we heard earlier. So,
yes. Wow. 1,000 people watching the show now. Holy cow. A lot of people interested. And remember to be sure to like and subscribe to this broadcast if you can. We have 197 likes, 1,000 people in the chat. What a perfect time to go ahead and bring up a survey again of everyone as we get on. We'll get back to, what do you call it? CNN. Actually, let's watch somewhat more of CNN. I think they're going to a commercial here. Let me,
and additional classified records to the Justice Department.
Okay, we don't even know about that.
President Trump.
Give me a second here. Let's zoom forward past some commercials.
One other quick update. We reported earlier that it was an F-16 firing a Sidewinder missile. They now updated that to say it was an F-16 that fired an AIM-9X. That's the same missile they fired the last 3 times to take down these other objects.
Right. So it looks like we're done on live news. I'll keep this posted right now. An interesting situation. Now, if you take a look at the map we had up a little bit earlier, we actually had it where you could see where we have, you know, we had tankers that were going in a regular pattern, going back and forth, allowing whatever aircraft were in the area to go ahead and address the situation. Most importantly, if you look, there is no commercial flight in that area, is there, West?
There was not at the time. They had cleared that airspace. I believe that those the no call sign and the Century 25. The Century 25 was the AWACS.
Right.
Both that and the tanker have now returned towards their bases.
Interesting, to say the least. Let's go ahead then, if we can. And Andy, you've got your hand raised, my friend.
Yeah, hi Thomas. I just want to say good evening to everybody and all of our viewers, old and new. Caught me on the hot this broadcast tonight, but wow, what an interesting 24 hours so far.
Yeah, it caught me. I slept until 11 o'clock this morning, and actually 1 o'clock this afternoon, and I opened my eyes, and sure enough, there's just a lot of things going on out there in the world right now with regards to the United States going and shooting this down. Let me go ahead and take a look at my feed here. I want to look for one of our...
I just want to say as well, it's woken up not just our this channel, but I see Lou Elizondo's finally started retweeting on Twitter as well.
Oh, he is.
I don't know if you mentioned that.
No, I did not.
Came in a bit late today.
Oh wow, good catch.
Yeah, so it looks like it's opening up. Obviously everybody's looking at UFO Twitter at the moment. That's fine.
Let's go ahead and bring it up. As you know, I follow Lou. Lou follows me. He's been on Disclosure Tonight many times in the past. Lou Elizondo, for those who aren't completely aware, is the former director of ATIP, which is the anomalous threat anomalous threat identification program. He's been the major disclosure advocate that's moved a lot of this forward. Let's see what Lou is saying. Remember Lou Elizondo's pledge. He will always tell you the truth. I will own my own mistakes and hold myself accountable. Everyone will be treated with respect, no matter their position. Abuse or hatred towards others will not be tolerated. Basically saying if you abuse or are hated towards other people, number 3 goes away. And number 5, I will always push for full disclosure. Let's see. Lou Elizondo retweeted that tweet that we already covered from Senator Gillibrand. So, in other words, that Lou is saying is so wise words. One said, quote, "Keep calm and carry on," end quote. We can't allow hysterics to drive our decision-making process. Coming from a former military individual who's involved on many levels within our federal government, consulting on the UFO phenomena. He's probably one of our, if you want to call it, he's probably one of our most knowledgeable subject matter experts on the phenomena within the United States. And not, if anyone honestly should be briefing the President of the United States on some of this stuff, it should be Lou. Let's just say about that. Larry,
Thomas, if you would like, I just posted a tweet that is the full quote from the Pentagon that
yes, sir.
Us on what they're saying.
Let's go ahead and jump to that now, shall we? All right. Actually, I'll bring in another tab. This cupcake is like, "What are you doing again, Dad? Where are you at? You're not paying attention to me." This is good old Cupcake. She's 18, going to be 19. And one of the main reasons I am not on the air sometimes because, well, she means a lot to me, and not much time is left, but I'm enjoying every minute that we have. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So I want to thank, we had a couple more super chats come in the back when I was going and having CNN up and going. One of them coming in from Jan, of course. We throw that up, and here we go. All right, sound effects are going. I can't hear it. That's fine. I want to thank Jan for your wonderful super chat. Holy cow, thank you very much. And also NeoCal, thanks for the $2. Appreciate every dollar that comes in. It's greatly appreciated. Every dollar that comes into Disclosure Tonight goes back into our production fund. We are fully fan funded. If we take a look here, we have 1,362 viewers in the show right now. Holy cow, 262 likes. Do us a favor, everyone. Hit that thumbs up, and if you're not having a good time, go ahead and give us that thumbs down. I'll take it either way, but if you're going to give us a thumbs down, at least give us some feedback in the form below, and we'll do what we can do to try and make sure that, we can do better. On that note, let's go ahead and take down the board, see where the chat is right now. Remember, if you have anything to say, feel free to go ahead and follow the link in the upper right corner of the chat. We have viewer call-in, as always, on Disclosure Tonight. It helps us know that this is not just us, it's all of you who have an interest in the phenomena. Let's go ahead and bring it forward. Coming from By Tux News, breaking, Pentagon says that the object shot down over Lake Huron was a threat due to its potential service capabilities. Let me go ahead and take out this clip here and put it into place. Be a little bit easier for me to deal with and try and bring it up in a way. I'll make it as large as I can so we can all go through this together. Here we go. At 2:42 p.m. today, at the direction of President Biden and based on the recommendations of Secretary Lloyd Austin and military leadership, an F-16 fired a AIM-9X to successfully shoot down an airborne object flying at approximately 20,000 feet altitude in the U.S. in the airspace over Lake Huron in the state of Michigan. Its path and altitude raised concerns, including that it could be a hazard to civil aviation. The location chosen for this shootdown afforded us the opportunity to avoid impact to people on the ground while improving chances for debris recovery. There are no indications of any civilians hurt or otherwise affected. North American Aerospace Defense Command, also known as NORAD, detected the object Sunday morning and has maintained visual and radar tracking of it. Based on its flight path and data, we can reasonably connect this object to the radar signal picked up over Montana, which flew in proximity to sensitive DoD sites, meaning we've got Maelstrom Air Force Base right really close by that houses a number of our Minuteman nuclear missiles. We did not assess it to be a kinetic military threat to anything on the ground, but assess it was a safety flight hazard. We'll hear that a lot in the future, and threat due to its potential surveillance capabilities. Now, this is the first time we've heard a UFO called out as a threat due to potential surveillance capabilities. It's something, again, we'll probably hear more in the future. Our team will now work to recover the object in an effort to learn more. On that note, I guess it comes down, since we've got a great audience in there right now, to ask the question, what does the audience think so far? Let me go ahead and find that chat. There we go. Bring it around here. Let's quickly start a poll, and we're going to ask, not the QA, start a poll. Let's get this together here. The UFO is... All right, let's go ahead and throw this out there. Quick question. It's always great to see where our audience takes this. Let me go ahead and bring up this survey right now, and let's see where everybody takes this, and we'll get back to the news in 1 second here. Hang on, and I have a good time. All right, coming in so far, we've got just 12 votes in. Let me get up our sound effect for this as we move forward. Where did it go? Here we go.
Welcome to all the new people who've
yes,
joined.
Absolutely. Big day today for Disclosure. Absolutely. All right, we've got 111 votes in already, our biggest one. Right now, we're at 46% of our audience right now is saying that it's human-made, also known as China. 53% of our audience is saying it's not human-made, also known as a UFO. Hey, Google, set a timer for 1 minute and 30 seconds. We're going to do a quick power. We're going to jump through this really quick. 1 minute and 30 seconds. I have to stop. Now. There we go. All right, so we got a minute and 30 seconds left to go. Get out there and vote. Let's see where we're at. This is a bit different from yesterday. We're at about a 50-50 split. 49% are saying human-made. 51% are not human-made. In our prior polls when we were doing this, we were opposite. We were about 60-40 going towards human-made versus not human-made. If you could take a vote on this, West, what would you say?
I'm going not human-made. The more we see, the more I'm convinced.
Yes, there's more. Now we've got different shapes. We had ones that were cylindrical. A couple of those, we had ones that were octagon shaped. So it's not the same thing in every place. And if there was a surveillance program, you think they would kind of have multiple, unless the other two that they shot down over Canada were distractions for this one. It's an interesting situation, to say the least. With just 30 seconds left to vote, we have 256 votes in. Holy cow. I think the audience is kind of speaking about this. We're about a 50-50. Our audience has changed the direction of where we're at and where we're seeing it, of human-made versus not human-made, with just 15 seconds left to go ahead and vote. Let's see where our audience takes this. It's a great opportunity. With 280 votes in, there we go. 5 seconds left, everybody. Actually, now there's 5 seconds left. 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to take a picture of that. Go ahead and end the poll to keep everything fair within it. I always do this for a short amount of time. And there is our answer right now. Our audience has spoken. More people think this is potentially, at this point, dealing with UFOs. It's a 50-50 split, with a little bit more going off in the audience for saying it's not. Larry, what's your opinion?
I'm gonna say not human-made, because
all right,
something's going on here.
Yeah, interesting to say the least. Where this all is heading. Let me check and see what's going on. Anything new happening on CNN or otherwise? I'm just scrubbing through it. Here we go. This is breaking from CNN a minute ago. Let's bring this up right now.
CNN This Morning, tomorrow at 6 Eastern.
Here we go.
We're turning to our breaking news and new details into CNN from the Pentagon about the takedown of that so-called object. CNN's Kylie Atwood joins us now. Kylie, the Pentagon is now addressing this incident. What are you learning?
Yeah, the Pentagon press office telling reporters just in the last few minutes here, Paula, that this object was shot down over Lake Huron at 2:42 p.m. this afternoon at the direction of President Biden by F-16 fighter jets. They're saying that it didn't pose a military threat, but it did potentially pose a threat to civilian aircraft. And that is because it was traveling, according to this statement, at about 20,000 feet elevation. Now, when you think about, everyday aircraft, they fly at about 30,000 feet. So this statement says that the Biden administration, U.S. officials were concerned about the path that this was traveling on, and also that elevation. Now, when it comes to any risk to civilians, there wasn't any. There were no civilians who were hurt or injured or otherwise affected. Of course, being shot down over water enabled that to be an outcome. And we should note that yesterday there were some questions about an FAA temporary flight restriction put into place in Montana, and there were some questions about what actually triggered that flight restriction. We didn't get a definitive answer on that today. There were a number of differing accounts that we heard, but what this statement from the Pentagon says is that they believe that this object is what actually triggered that flight restriction yesterday. And I just want to read to you exactly what they say here, saying, quote, "Based on its flight path and data, we can reasonably connect this object to the radar signal picked up over Montana, which flew in proximity to sensitive DoD sites. We did not assess it to be a kinetic military threat to anything on the ground, but assess it was a safety flight hazard and a threat due to its potential surveillance capabilities." Now, surveillance capabilities, the potential for those is key here. So far, we don't know what those capabilities on board this unidentifiable object actually were, but that, rest assured, is going to be something that those who are doing these recovery efforts, which is now going to be getting underway, are going to be looking for answers to. Paula?
Kylie Atwood, thank you. And Republican Congressman Jack Burgum of Michigan joins us now. Representative, you serve on the House Armed Services Committee. What is your reaction to what the Pentagon just revealed, the takedown of this object near Lake Huron?
Well, my reaction is very simple, and that is when the Pentagon called me shortly after it took action, because Lake Huron in that area is in my district. Number one, decisive action using the right equipment, the F-16, using the right type of munition to do the takedown. But now the big part, as was mentioned by Kylie a minute ago, is the recovery piece to understand. And Lake Huron is very, very cold this time of year. They're going to have to use some special diving capabilities to get down there. The good news is Lake Huron is not that deep, not like Lake Superior, but the need to take decisive action by Northern Command,
Were you saying something, West? No. I don't think
Department of Defense is what we need, because we've seen it over the past few weeks. There are some challenges to our sovereign airspace.
And this is the third object shot down in just 3 days. How concerned are you about this pattern?
Okay, I just lost your audio. Try one more time.
Sure thing. This is the third object shot down in just 3 days. It seems like we've lost the congressman. We will go to our expert panel and try to circle back with Congressman Jack Berger. All right, let's talk more about this with CNN military analyst, retired U.S. Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton, and CNN national security analyst Juliette Kayan. Colonel Leighton, Juliette, thank you so much for being with us. I want to get your reaction to what we just heard from the Pentagon. Juliette, I want to start with you.
So it's just a confirmation of what we had been reporting, which is essentially we still don't know what the object is. I think what's really important is the military is acknowledging that they are getting lots of positives now, because after what happened with the Chinese balloon, they are now opening up the aperture. They're getting more positives. They are then assessing what it is in the sky. If it is unmanned, if it is a threat to commercial aviation, and if shooting it down is not going to harm Americans, basically the assumption is we're shooting it down at this stage until we figure out what this is. It does not mean we know it's the Chinese. It does not mean that it's simply these potential positives because of we're looking harder after what happened with the Chinese balloon. And I think we should just anticipate that at this stage until we can identify what it is that they're finding once they shoot it down. And
one thing to take into consideration, I had just had this dropped in my lap from the news desk here, is one thing to consider. Could this be a distraction for the major incident we had a couple days ago with regards to a major deadly chemical spill that happened in Ohio? Could this be something that they're actually doing to go ahead and try and distract us from the situation? It seems like right after this happened, they're saying there's no threat, there's nothing wrong here, there's nothing to see, it's not dangerous, it's not hazardous. And remember, the White House, the rail workers were concerned about this. They were concerned about the potential threat of a major disaster happening, and the Biden administration about a month ago interceded and prevented the workers from going on strike because of their concerns. Could this potentially be a movement by the Biden administration that may have known about some of these objects that were there, that maybe have not been talking about them, but all of a sudden, let's go ahead and let's distract the people of the United States from the real issue that went on?
No, I have to say that doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you look at this, they're showing that our national defense is being potentially penetrated by unknown, foreign, or unidentifiable objects on multiple levels, and it's involving multiple countries. So we look much worse with this news than we would covering up a chemical spill.
I've got you. Hey, you just got asked a question sometimes because you don't know exactly where it is, and you just have to be willing to ask the questions and say, sometimes, are there any parallels to what's going on? Well, the chat is crazy. We have 1,410 viewers watching the show right now. If you're new to Disclosure tonight, please do us a favor. Give us a thumbs up if you're having a good time. And if not, give us a thumbs down. More importantly, let us know in the comments below what you are liking or not liking about the show. We'll do our best to try and get there. Also, if you're new to this channel, you want to hear more about the phenomenon on a regular basis, we cover this in a news format 5 days a week, sometimes more. This week it's like 6 or 7 days a week. Go us a favor, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you are already subscribed, hit that bell. Make sure you're set up for getting all updates from Disclosure tonight. We go live 5 nights a week during the weekdays at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, on Saturdays at 2 p.m. Pacific. And on that. Let's continue on with CNN, as I've got another story coming in that's being covered by the New York Times, of all places. So let's continue on as this story continues to evolve. Remember, we're talking about, where is those images at? Let me find them again. Give me a second here. We're talking about, where'd it go? I know it's here. There it is. We're talking about a craft that was shot down over Lake Huron. We had some stratotankers that were up and moving around in that area, circling over Michigan and over Lake Huron itself. And this particular part of the airspace right now is still shut down. I think we're seeing one jet going through there, but you can see the actual path of the jet of the tanker as it was moving around in that particular area. Let's move on back to the feed from CNN, trying to jump between as many things as I can to keep this conversation going.
Any other speculation could be very dangerous for our relations and could honestly harm Americans, because we will be so convinced that this is enemy, that these are enemy balloons or whatever they are, that we could potentially make calculations that do not fit the risk at this stage. So that's sort of where we are right now, and I anticipate we are going to get more of these at this stage.
Coming
That's a
in
great
from
point. Colonel Layton, what's your reaction to this latest development from the Pentagon?
Get this one here.
Yeah, I think, as Julian said, this does confirm
Gary.
lot of what we had previously been talking about. One of the key things I thought was very interesting was the fact that they mentioned that the surveillance part of this was a definite possibility. So this seems to lend credence to the idea that these are, in fact, surveillance craft of whatever type. And I think we should treat them as such until we know much more. And that means, taking security measures.
So they're calling them surveillance craft of any kind. That doesn't rule them out of being surveillance for something that's human or not human. LM, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different reasons they could be saying that. It could be true. They said potentially. That's an interesting word, potentially. It's either they saw some form of surveillance apparatus, or they didn't, or they got some kind of signal off of it.
Well, there was actually a statement from the government saying that there was signals intelligence on the craft that was over Montana that was near Maelstrom Air Force Base, which is known for its nuclear missiles, but it's also known because in the past it had been reportedly visited by UFOs in the past. I think it was back in the early 70s, where they actually went in and they disabled our missiles for a period of time, literally shut them down. Not that long thereafter, we had missiles over in Ukraine that was controlled by Russia at that time, where their nuclear missiles were actually started on a countdown of the actual launching of the missiles, and they couldn't stop it. So again, the phenomena's got kind of it's not just one size fits all. It knows who we are better than we know each other, and it does things necessary to get the threat narrative. Let them know that we are the threat.
I would agree with that. I think they've also boxed themselves into a corner politically with having shot down the Chinese balloon after determining there was surveillance apparatus on it, that they kind of have to be consistent now, because not just for the American public, but also for our adversaries. Because if we allow something to float through that we believe could potentially have surveillance, then I could imagine China would still be a little more upset about the fact that we shot down their balloon when they were claiming it didn't. So I do think this is a double down, so to speak, of certain check marks that hit. If it's in certain, if it's at certain altitudes within flight patterns and potentially could have surveillance, I think that's kind of reestablished a parameter of it's coming down. We're going to shoot it down.
Yep, absolutely.
That's a really good point.
Along those lines, we've got breaking news from the other side of the aisle coming in from Fox News, a 14-minute clip that was just posted up to YouTube by Fox. Let's go ahead and get this. And Gary showed up. Gary, welcome. Gary, how you doing today?
Hello. You've moved the screen now. Before, the lady that CNN reporter lady, she looks like Roger the alien from American Dad in a wig. And there, see, look. Now imagine Roger the alien from American Dad in a wig.
Oh my! It's the obvious things we fail to see sometimes. Let's go ahead and get this clip up and
They've been
going.
in front of us the entire time.
All right. Let's go on with this 15-minute clip, and then we'll jump back to CNN Live.
The U.S. military shoots down another object, this time over Lake Huron, making this the fourth shoot-down in about 1 week. Joining us now is Lucas Tomlinson with the latest. Lucas.
Well, good afternoon. This is the fourth time in 8 days the U.S. military has shot down an object over North
Wait a second, hold on. Sorry about that. The window popped out. Where did it go? Hold on.
We just learned some new details from Michigan Congressman Jack Bergman, of course, a retired Marine Corps three-star general and former CH-46 pilot.
Hold on a second. My freaking window just vanished here. Sorry about this, folks.
A U.S. Air Force F-16 fighter jet shot down a mysterious octagonal object
Where the
over
hell
Lake
is
Huron
Roger and
using a
Morticia.
Sidewinder
Is
missile.
it on? This could be on CNN, I think. Yeah, it is. It's CNN. Give me a second here. Yeah, too many windows at the same time.
I don't get it. Please ignore the sort of loud noises while Thomas is trying to find the window.
Guys, starting on Friday, when an object
Give me a second. We'll get this feed up here in a second. I know it's here somewhere.
Right on the northern coast of Alaska. That search for the debris has been hampered by rough weather. It's minus 20
get out of
degrees up
Chrome
there.
for the meantime.
Get out of Chrome
very
for a
difficult.
second.
And then, of course, yesterday, another object was
Hey,
blasted out.
Yes, sir. Hold on. I'm trying to find this audio here, guys.
It's notable that
there it
was
is.
a U.S. Air Force jet shooting this thing down over.
Okay, someplace else. Sorry about that, everybody. Let's get back to Safari, get that clip up that I wanted to show.
And just to be on standby, there's a report that Fox Live may be going to a phone briefing soon with the Pentagon.
The U.S. military shoots down
thank you.
another object, this time over Lake Huron, making this the fourth shoot-down in about 1 week. Joining us now is Lucas Tomlinson with the latest. Lucas.
Well, good afternoon. This is the fourth time in 8 days the U.S. military has shot down an object over North America, certainly unprecedented in the history of this country. We just learned some new details from Michigan Congressman Jack Bergman, of course, a retired Marine Corps three-star general and former CH-46 pilot, which Joey knows all about, of course. He says this a U.S. Air Force F-16 fighter jet shot down a mysterious octagonal object over Lake Huron earlier today using a Sidewinder missile. That object flying at 20,000 feet. That's notable because that's much lower than those two objects shot down over the past 2 days. This is now the third object shot down in the past 3 days, guys, starting on Friday when an object was shot down over the north coast of Alaska, as you see here on this chart, right on the northern coast of Alaska. That search for the debris has been hampered by rough weather. It's minus 20 degrees up there. It's very, very difficult. And then, of course, yesterday, another object was blasted out of the sky by a U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptor. It's notable that it was a U.S. Air Force jet shooting this thing down over the skies of Canada and Canadian airspace. That was on joint orders from President Biden and Canada's Prime Minister. And just as we know now, just moments ago, a U.S. Air Force F-16 fighter jet shooting down this object over Lake Huron. And of course, this came just hours after some airspace over Lake Michigan had been closed because they thought they detected something. But then NORAD and the FAA lifted that restriction. We don't know if that's because this object had passed through there. Obviously, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron are very close together with the state of Michigan in between. And as you see on the map there on the left side, radar anomaly, just hours after that shoot down of the object over Canadian airspace yesterday, the FAA closed some airspace down over Montana, right near the border with Canada, of course, near Malmstrom Air Force Base, home to some U.S. nuclear missile silos. F-15 Eagles were scrambled from Portland, Oregon. They went in, they didn't see anything, and the NORAD later put out a statement, guys, saying it was a radar anomaly, essentially saying this is a false alarm. However, Senator John Tester from Montana was on CBS this morning.
Okay, it was a false alarm that they shot down over Lake Huron. Sorry, you just have to laugh at our dysfunctional government. They're calling it one way, one place, and another time, yeah.
Thinks he believes there was and is something up there.
What was that, Andy?
Is that a special false alarm missile they shot it down with?
I'm not sure.
Now, Montana around this area is about 1,500 miles to Lake Michigan, Lake Huron. It's not immediately clear, was this the same object? You know, these flying objects have not been traveling very quickly. Of course, when you go back over a week ago, you had that gigantic 2,000-pound Chinese spying apparatus that was shot down off the coast of South Carolina, also by an F-22 Raptor, that one out of Langley Air Force Base. So just one more time. This is the 4th time in 8 days the U.S. military has shot down an object over the skies of North America, guys.
Okay, and thank you, Lucas. And I can imagine folks at home are wondering, first of all, we don't know where the other 3 are from, where their origins, right. Correct. Okay, correct. But also you've got to wonder, how can any of these be used to harm us in any way? Are these enemy states testing our perimeter and testing our response? I mean, these are a lot of questions that are coming up, I imagine, for Americans.
Right, Alicia. One thing that's very notable, it appears that these 3 objects that have been shot down over the last 3 days all were able to penetrate U.S. airspace. They were not detected until they were already inside this country. That is very concerning for military officials. Of course, we heard from NORAD's commanding general, General Van Herk, who called it essentially a blind spot. I think he called it a domain awareness gap, a little bit of Pentagonese there. But bottom line is it's a blind spot. But, not unlike the Super Bowl, most of us are about to watch this evening, what do teams, what do countries, adversaries look for? They look for these blind spots. They look to exploit, and that is what appears to be happening. However, once again, just a word of caution. Top officials at the Pentagon, here at the White House, we heard from Canada's defense minister last night in Ottawa. She said we do not know the origin of any of these objects. The object shot down over Canada yesterday, the object just shot down over Lake Huron, and certainly that object shot down off the north coast of Alaska on Friday.
All right. Lucas, on that note, let's go ahead and jump across to a little bit more recent feed coming. We're getting ready. They're getting ready for a Pentagon briefing.
Thomas?
Yes, sir?
Before you do this, can you do me a favor? Can you turn your mic down? Not too much, but it's really overloading the past few days.
Yeah. Okay, it's down. Let me make sure where I'm at. Hold on. Properties. I'm fine. Go to filters. Oh, no wonder why I have gain turned on. Let's try it now. All right, how about now?
One button.
I think it should be better. I've turned off an additional gain. I'm just right in the spot where it's just going up to -5. Right past -5.
Okay. As long as you're the same sound as everybody else, that's fine.
Well, if you could take a listen with your headphones, that'd be great to find out.
Oh, my God.
All right, let's go ahead and continue on with this next piece.
Some of what China has had to say about the shooting down of what they first said was a commercial weather balloon.
Well, the very first reactions, John, were regret. Then we saw a much harsher tone when they said that the United States had overreacted because this was a company balloon, was weather related and not military, which obviously was not true. And we're now starting to see China mock the United States for what they call the overreaction. And we can see this, for instance, on Twitter from Chinese state media posters. So the tone has now changed again. And eventually, I think it'll become quite harsh because that's the way the pattern should work if it follows what has occurred in the past.
So what do you glean from that?
First of all, I think that the initial soft tone was really because the Chinese regime had yet to figure out what it wanted to say. We don't know why the regime did this, John. There are so many different theories. One of them is that the military just did this on its own because it's so politically powerful that it didn't need to consult with anybody else, or at least all it did was it told Chinese leader Xi Jinping it was going to do this, and Xi was maybe in no position to respond. The other theory is that Xi Jinping was doing this to humiliate the United States. If it was the first theory, I think that probably that threw the rest of the Chinese regime into a panic as they tried to figure out how to explain this to the world.
And the idea of Xi Jinping trying to humiliate the United States is not particularly palatable either.
No, there are no good explanations here. The Chinese propaganda line for the last 2.5 years has been that the United States is in no position to talk to China from a position of strength. That's what we heard from China's top 2 diplomats in that infamous meeting in Anchorage in March of 2021. Also, we are starting to get these notions from China that we are incapable, that we're done as a power, that the Chinese can do anything that they want. And there have been indications from Chinese academics speaking to large audiences in China that basically no American can stand up to China. So this is a very dangerous attitude on the part of the Chinese, because I'm not saying that that's right. I think it's wrong. But the point is, it doesn't matter whether their assessment is correct. What matters is what they are in fact thinking. And what they are in fact thinking can lead them to do all sorts of dangerous and provocative things.
We're going to be taking a briefing shortly from the Pentagon in which they'll be talking about these 3 latest shoot downs in 3 days. Friday over Alaska, yesterday over the Yukon in Canada, and then today over Lake Huron in Michigan. 3 different objects all shot down by U.S. fighter planes. Now, we cannot say yet, because the Pentagon hasn't said yet, that these are from China. They could be from North Korea. They could be from Russia. I suppose they could be from Iran, for that matter. But does it fit a pattern to you? I mean, if you were a betting man, would you guess that these are of Chinese origin?
I'd guess that they're either Chinese or Russian. The object that was shot down on Friday, and as well as the one yesterday, came in from a very different track than that big Chinese spy balloon that entered territorial airspace on January 28th. And that could suggest that China and Russia are working together on sort of a 1-2 punch. We don't really know right now, but I don't think that we can rule out Chinese and Russian cooperation, especially, John, because we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Russia's attack on Ukraine, February 24th. And I assume that Russia is going to do something and that China is going to support Russia in whatever it does.
Right, because they had that agreement, they had that meeting before the Ukraine invasion, and basically Putin and Xi shook hands and said, nothing's off the table. We've got a great relationship here.
That's right. There was a 5,300-word joint statement that was issued on February 4th when Vladimir Putin was in Beijing for the opening ceremony of the Beijing Olympics. And that's when they declared their no limits partnership. And no limits means no limits. We have seen China supply everything possible to the Russians. The Biden administration has issued warnings to Beijing, but has not imposed costs. Because we have seen...
Quick moment here for a pause. Larry, you've had your hand up, my friend. Sorry I haven't called on you.
Thomas, have we ever gotten any proof that this first balloon was from China? And have we gotten any proof that it was a spying balloon?
The first balloon, yes, we do know where it came from. We have a good idea of the location it was even launched from. So if there's a question regarding the very first balloon that was seen, was it from China? Yeah, it looks like it was. Now, whether or not and how we're going to deal with that, they're working right now. They were bringing out a if you want to call it a crane on a fairly large sized boat, so they could go ahead and bring in the actual, bring up the object, which they said is mostly intact at the bottom of the ocean where it was taken down off the coast of, I believe it was South Carolina, correct? I think so.
I don't remember.
All right. Some people are saying my audio was a little bit louder, brought up my mic a little bit closer. Let's continue on with this breaking news coverage on what's going on from all across the place. We're here as experts within the area of the phenomena. We're going ahead and bringing the news, pausing it as we're going along, reflecting on it, because this is something we've been covering for a long period of time and lend a lot of experience and knowledge to. Let's move on with that, shall we?
China crossed the line that the White House has established, which is military assistance. China has been supplying military assistance from the beginning of the war, and we haven't done anything. So basically, Beijing, I assume, just feels it can do whatever it wants.
Well, and they probably were taking that lesson from previous overflights. After the Chinese balloon was shot down a week ago, all of a sudden we were told that this is not the first time this has happened. Well, nobody did anything in the past, so, you can't blame, in a way, the Chinese for continuing these provocations.
Absolutely correct, because China has been able to get away with this. We weren't looking for it. When we saw these anomalies, we just dismissed them, which is understandable given the context. But this points up a very important point, and I think that is the Pentagon is not really prepared to defend us from China. Remember, on the big Chinese spy balloon, It entered territorial airspace on the 28th of January. It was not.
David H. Altman brings up a great message to go ahead and say here. Biggest thing to remember, and it's not demons, not angels. This is not a religious revelation of what's coming around. Yes, we have F-22 Raptors, 3, balloons, 0, but it's not the rapture as well, I can go ahead and say. And Dave, if you feel like it, always welcome here. Follow the link at the top of the chat. Would love to have you in as a panelist. Absolutely.
The rapture.
Really. Yes, sir.
Can I just say that I really despise the warmongering I'm hearing from this guy. It's like, oh, China thinks they can do whatever they want. Well, we're going to teach them a lesson. You know, it's really, I don't agree with it.
But again, coming from the War Department, from people who used to be a part of it, it's not surprising because they see everything as a threat, everything as a reason to take that war machine and crank it up to the next level. Hopefully not, but you know what? We're going to cover from either side and know that, you know, if this is non-human, we've got some work to do. If this is human, we have some more work to do. Yes, we've got, 1,387 people in the show right now, 528 likes. Do us a favor, if you're having a good time, give us a thumbs up. And if you're not, go ahead and give us a thumbs down. We'll take one or the other. It shows an interaction that YouTube rates us on. We appreciate that. Helps us go ahead and share this with more people. We appreciate everyone coming in. Remember, if you're new, please like and subscribe to the broadcast. Please subscribe to the broadcast. And if you're a subscriber, be sure to check that bell so you get, the latest updates to know when we are going to be going live in days like this. Let's continue on.
Not until 4 days later that they actually notified the President of the United States that this object was in our airspace. And that just completely unacceptable. Now, we've seen a much faster reaction time with the last 3 objects, which is great. But the point is, we Americans just have not really in a frame of mind to understand the nature of the threat from China.
That's tragic, and let's hope that your work will help continue to alert this country as to the danger that China poses. Gordon Chang. Gordon, thank you.
Thanks, John.
We just got word that Pentagon news conference has been postponed. I wanted to let you know that although we had been told it would be taking place any minute now, it has been postponed. Don't want to keep you hanging on for that if it's not going to happen right away. In the meantime, the U.S. military shot down yet another aerial object today, this time over Lake Huron in Michigan. The third shoot down in as many days of a flying object of unknown origin over North America. We're going to bring in Texas Congressman Lance Gooden. He is a member, of the House Financial Services Committee.
Yeah, little interesting piece coming up from Michael LaPierre, a new viewer to the channel in the chat. He's saying, I'd like to see what kit they are wearing to recover these quote-unquote balloons. That would be telling. Definitely. No need to protect from radiation if it's just a balloon. That sounds about accurate.
Thomas, Tim saying 7:15 ET, that makes me laugh, especially when we're talking about this subject, is when the Pentagon update is.
Interesting. We'll see where it goes. There'll be a lot of discussion along the way as we get there, as we, move towards this. I would say one thing. If anything, this is a historic day because there's so much coverage about unidentified aerial phenomena going on. I don't think I've seen this much buzz happening, even back on the day when we had the UFO report coming on, because there are actual craft. We're engaging with it. We're trying to take it down. We're going to have to, can we FOIA whatever they recover? If it's a matter of national security, super crazy movie geek, it's not going to be an option. Let me go ahead and continue on with this. Oh, back don't want that. Hold on. All right, let's move across back. Then we've got some cached footage here from Fox earlier where they were talking about this in a more generic sense. Let's go ahead and jump across to that, and I'll see if I can bring up, one second, Larry, the other channel. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the fact that they're not using the term UFO, even though that's exactly what they are. But they're you know, in this case, I'm really appreciative of that because it doesn't mix it up with real UFOs. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you exactly what you're talking about. I've got a couple different TV tuners here. I'm bringing up another one for CNN so we can be covering both channels on the coverage that's going on. Let's get across to that and see what CNN is saying right now as well. Okay, it is nothing. They're talking about Anthony Bourdain. Yeah, all parts unknown. Let's continue on.
What we don't know is driving the questions we have. Obviously, it's driving our curiosity, our imagination. Our minds are going everywhere, and hopefully we're going to get more information soon. One thing that I'm doing my own research and looking at a report
As I turn this down, we had another one of our guests drop in, one of our old-time regulars coming around, someone who was part of the movie A Terror from the Sky, phenomenal person who's been researching and part of the UFO phenomenon for too many years to count. David Altman, how you doing, my friend?
It's not aliens.
It's not aliens.
It's not demons.
Yeah. What do you think
That's all I got to say, man. That's all I got to say. You know, like it's either a distraction or it's legit some other country or it's some Super Bowl promotion. I don't know.
You know, I've never heard of this potentially as a Super Bowl promotion. That would be a Super Bowl promotion for some people to be going to jail on, I tell you that.
Who knows? I don't know. I mean, honestly, even if, you know, they're saying, oh, you know, we don't know what they are. If they do, or if they find out, we're never going to know the truth either way.
Don't have to be value. You'll get the most accurate price.
True. Absolutely. Great points, David.
So I'm out. I'm going to go. I just wanted to say it's not aliens.
Thank you for stopping in, David. I appreciate you stopping by today. Thank
Later,
you.
guys.
Later. All right, let's go ahead and continue on with this brief as I look for more additional content for us to go ahead and cover. Wait, the audio is down. Let me bring it back up again.
There's no question this is why the Pentagon, NORAD are scrambling fighter jets to get a visual ID before opening fire. These aren't just shooting down, you know, targets beyond visual range. It's why they're using these AIM-9 Sidewinders. A heat-seeking missile, you got to be in short range to use them, and that's why they're being studied for hours. In the case of that gigantic spy balloon that traveled across the United States on that week-long odyssey, of course, they took a lot of time to observe it, but certainly these three objects, they all appear to be a little bit different, however. We heard from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, of course, a member of the Gang of Eight. He is privy to some of the nation's closest held secrets. He called the objects, certainly the one over Canada, shot down a balloon. U.S. officials have told Fox in the past 24 hours the object shot down over Canada was this small metallic balloon, and it was tethered to a small payload. Friday, we heard from John Kirby at the podium here at the White House, who said the object was the size of a small car, certainly much smaller than what was called a giant 2,000-pound Chinese spy apparatus that was the size of 3 school buses. But back to your question, Joey, there's no question visual ID is happening. Of course, you know, you have things like IFF, you know, radar. From a weather balloon, you're not going to get IFF, of course. You know, it's unmanned. They don't even file a flight plan. I mean, they might do a notice to airmen, you know, launch those things. But officials tell me it'd be very difficult to think that the U.S. military is just blasting weather balloons out of the sky with $500,000 Sidewinder missiles.
I mean, that's absolutely fair. Right now, we just don't know. They're telling me that we have pictures now of, I believe this is the plane going over Lake Huron, the plane that responded to that balloon or that object.
Could be an airliner, let's be fair. I mean, that's really far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is notable, you know, that the
additional stuff coming in, just remembering that the object that was shot down over Lake Huron was octagonal and had no discernible payload. At least that's what a senior U.S. official is telling Reuters at this point. So, you know, information is leaking out on this, not necessarily from, we've got a presser coming up in about, a bit of time. Go ahead and cover that score.
See, if they were being sent by like another country, wouldn't they all be the same thing? Why would they spend all that money in doing different designs?
You bring up a very, very good point and something that I agree with completely.
Thomas, I've had my hand up for a bit. Sorry, cutting in. Something I was musing on, which our esteemed reporter there, Lucas, has just brought up about the AIM-9 sidewinders. They've used these missiles to knock all three of these objects out of the sky. They are a heat-seeking missile. So whatever these objects are, they are producing heat of some sort, enough for these missiles to lock onto. If it was just a balloon, I'm sure they'd be just shooting these things out with their onboard guns they have. Air defense guns that all these planes carry for self-defense. They carry missiles, but they also do have guns for close-in dogfighting if ever that's to happen.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's something that
there's enough of
us at the moment.
There's enough of a signature there to where they can be picked up. Not necessarily, even if you want to call it UAPs that we've observed, they all can be picked up on FLIR for that matter. So there should be enough heat of something, whether it's cold or hot, for them to pick up and lock in on.
It's not a helium balloon, it's either somebody who's out on the sightseeing hot air balloon. It needs to be quite a good amount of heat for these things to latch onto.
Right, and there's no discernible payload, so if it was a balloon, a payload would be the basket beneath it that's being carried, but these do not have that. Interesting that the shape is octagonal, because that just goes right in the whole UFO spectrum of things based on the shapes. We're seeing cylinders, we're seeing octagonal shapes, which all kind of align with the reported shapes of UFOs. Now, again, if it was China, and they do have some kind of advanced technology, and they are mimicking these shapes for a reason, so the government just says, oh, well, you know what, it's a UFO, we're going to go ahead and ignore it. And again, this is why Lou Elizondo has said many, many times that what we're dealing with here is the largest lapse in national security that the United States has ever seen, something I'd say on equivalent to 9/11 and Pearl Harbor combined. We've covered our eyes, ears, and covered our mouths coming from the government that we're not going to see it, we're not going to hear it, and we're not going to allow anyone to talk about it.
Exactly.
What you also need to remember, Thomas, this is unprecedented as far as I know. I don't know of other than 9/11 possibly where armed missiles are being fired over the American states, over civilian areas, not training areas. This is whatever it is. This is a major thing to be bringing objects out of the sky with live missiles.
To your point, Andy, during 9/11, the jets weren't armed. They were having to be prepared to actually kamikaze into the airliners if they needed to, because they didn't have any ordnance on board.
Okay, so then this actually takes a higher. I'm sorry the way I'm going to say it, and I'm sorry the way I say it's going to offend some people, but this actually takes a higher precedent than 9/11.
Well,
and I don't mean that in a horrible sense,
no.
in any way, shape, or form. But
well, on 9/11 happened when it took place. It was something crashing into civilian locations to cause a big shock and awe. Here we've got things that are acting in a covert method, with jamming our signals intelligence, making it almost impossible for us to track some of these objects at night. That's why last night, when they were tracing down that object in Montana, that they had to stop the overall process and wait till morning, which then at that time, earlier today, we had it where we had tankers, if you want to call it, in a looping configuration and going over Lake Huron to support probably multiple F-16 fighters who are up there, clearly engaging, trying to find and engaging with this object that's octagon shape that we have not identified yet as a something from China, something from Russia, something from a third-party organization like some giant evil corporation. Who knows? But, or for that matter, it could be something that would be, if you want to call it, considered extraterrestrial, which would be something not of this planet, or it could be something that's ultra-terrestrial, which means it's something that has been around this planet probably longer than humanity itself. Jay Burke is popping up some interesting information here in the chat. Chris Leto did not describe these as heat-seeking missiles. I am quite sure he described them as missiles that were designed specifically to punch holes in things instead of exploding.
Possibly, but that's a lot. These things, if they're going to do that, they're going to have to explode. They're going to have to, because these things have got to come down to ground. If they're designed to punch holes in things, these things have got to be able to detonate at a certain point, or else you've got an unguided missile basically going into potentially populated areas.
Yeah.
I bow to his expertise. He's a pilot who's flown these things and everything.
Absolutely. As we look on, Xavier Gamer has got up another question that's up there right now. Why would extraterrestrial drones allow themselves to be destroyed? And looking at it from that angle, potentially, if these were to be extraterrestrial drones, if they really wanted to make themselves known and make themselves be identified, it would be sacrificing some craft to allow disclosure to start moving forward. Now, it wouldn't be great if we had some of these coming down across all the major cities in the United States or the Super Bowl itself. We'll see where it goes, but it's
or they've been there the whole time, but the government saw the opportunity with the Chinese balloon to start drawing attention to them so they can tell people what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Interesting conversations. Interesting to see where this is all going to go. Let's go ahead and AI. Wild Gamer Jimbo is saying AI tech. We don't know. We could call, if you look at it, we could potentially be some form of AI, a biological type, but we just don't know. So we can take that route of Avi Loeb saying, it's, or some of the others saying it's AI tech. Well, I'm not going to jump down that road quickly. Let's go ahead and watch some more of this canned segment of Fox, and then we'll get back to the breaking news as soon as it hits. Let's watch this here.
Jack Bergman is a former Marine Corps 3-star general. He flies CH-46s. Joy, you know about it. You've probably taken a few rides back in your day on those sea nights. He knows what he's talking about when he said it was a U.S. Air Force F-16. That's notable, of course. A lot of F-16s in the Air National Guard. Yesterday, you had F-15 Eagles scrambling from Portland to respond to that, what seemingly was a false alarm over Montana. However, you don't have to do a basic dead reckoning to know that, if something is traveling east and it was spotted over Montana last night, this could very well be that same object. We don't know. We do know that Senator John Tester this morning was pretty testy on CBS saying he thought an object was up there. He didn't buy the radar anomaly excuse from NORAD.
Lucas, we also have a tweet from Montana Congressman Matt Rosendale saying, I'm in constant communication with NORCOM, and they have just advised me that they have confidence there is an object and is not an anomaly. I'm waiting now to receive visual confirmation. Our nation's security is my priority. Obviously, you've got congressmen from this region that are sounding the alarm. Their constituents, I know because I'm from the Midwest, I'm from South Dakota, their constituents probably are not very used to this kind of activity happening over their airspace. So my question for you is this. Is it now, because we saw this Chinese spy balloon last weekend was visible to the naked eye. Now we've got these other objects that may or may not be visible to the naked eye. What is the likelihood that there have been objects like this flying over our airspace, penetrating our airspace for a long time, and now the American government is just on high alert for these kind of objects?
Yes. Well, I think there's no question. By the way, that tweet
yes,
by
as we jump back, let's jump back to something a little bit more new.
That what she just said there, truth. Yep, 100%.
Yes. Interesting situation where all of this is going. Let's continue on with this one, and I've got additional stuff.
Rosedale, he was obviously very fired up and was not buying that statement from NORAD last night. They called this a radar anomaly, seemingly a false alarm. He was very convinced, based on conversations he had been having with officials, that this was a real target, a real contact in the sky. And it appears, if it's the same contact that it now headed east, that he was correct. Back to what you're saying, Tommy, about spotting these on radar. I've been told we have sound from Senator Tester. Let's all have a listen.
The truth is that there was an anomaly, and they've investigated. I think it got dark last night, so they couldn't fully check it out. What's gone on the last, 2 weeks or so, 10 days, has been nothing short of craziness. And the military needs to have a plan to not only determine what's out there, but determine the dangers that go with it.
So Senator Tester was obviously a little fired up there, saying he was very convinced something in the sky. It's also notable, though, when he says it got dark out. I mean, that's just not how the U.S. military works. In fact, the U.S. military sometimes works best at night. Certainly, we're trying to get a visual ID. Of course, that's more challenging. But it's not like our pilots don't have nods and can't see at night. The U.S. military is an all-weather service, can see at any time. Just bottom line is, once again, this is the fourth time in 8 days the U.S. military shot down an object over North America. Tommy, going back to your question about why these aren't being spotted, I was thinking about it the other day, and I was thinking about a little analogy that it's almost like looking for emails in your inbox. If I told you to look for something in your inbox and you just count it, you spend hours, maybe days, trying to find certain emails. But if you have a keyword search,
I don't know if there's anyone in the back can go ahead and take a look. Jackie Redford is saying that it's being reported on many outlets that China is about to shoot down a UFO.
I'll look into it.
Yes, absolutely. We'll have to see where this is going, and it's an evolving day as it goes on. Happy frickin' Sunday, everybody. Holy cow.
it's easier to find those emails. I think a very similar thing right now going with the radar picture. Right now, the Pentagon has collected a lot of data from these objects, from that giant Chinese spy craft, and they've gone back into the systems because, of course, all this radar data is stored.
Oh, my God, Roxy King, I love you. It's a mostly peaceful balloon bursting. Mostly peaceful protest.
Civilian satellite companies like Planet or Maxar, they'll keep all that stuff. They have to. The Pentagon's the same way, NORAD. So what they're doing is going back in time and seeing, do we think we ever heard or saw this? That's where it's coming from.
Make sure there's no... Okay, we're good.
That's why when they said this happened during the Trump administration, you heard from President Trump and all his top aides say, we don't remember this. That's because they didn't know. Many people in the Pentagon didn't know. And frankly, a lot of these discoveries were dismissed. Officials have come clean with that, saying they did not rise to the level. Some military pilots saying, look at those Tic-Tac videos, not TikTok, Tic-Tac from USS Nimitz. Remember those UFOs that were seen buzzing around, the heads-up display from those Navy pilots? Remember they're saying...
Now remember, Avi Loeb, who's got the Galileo project going, his particular take on the Tic-Tac and what that was reported, it could never have happened because it goes outside of our known physics, and he's unwilling to accept it. So... remember, when you're hearing stuff about Avi Loeb, you've got someone who's a debunker trying to find reasons why not the things are here versus trying to find explanations of what is here.
Thomas.
This is going so
yes,
fast.
sir.
Was that the first time the Tic-Tac has actually been referenced in this particular news cycle with...
Yes, it is.
...these items? That's interesting.
Whoa, can't believe it. There's a chance this is what could be a very similar craft. We just don't know the origin over these last three objects. But just remember, U.S. spy satellites for years, they're not looking for small, slow balloons. U.S. military spy satellites, IR birds in particular, they're looking for missile launches in North Korea. They're looking at aircraft, troop movements, China, North Korea, Russia, of course, over Ukraine. That's what spy satellites are doing. They're looking at a lot of stationary objects or missile launchers, and because they have that data in the systems, if it's like a large explosion, how much orange flame is there? That's how they identify. When these North Korean missiles go up within seconds, minutes, you get those statements out of the Pentagon. They even know what class is it, KN-23, KN-24. I don't want to get into the weeds of North Korean ballistic missiles here, but that's how they know. Is it an ICBM? They see them rolling out of like the closet, the storage, and all that. Anyway, I digress. Going on a little long here.
Lucas, quick question, quick answer. The administration's messaging to this point has been reactive, defensive, and inconsistent. The president is spending a rare weekend at the White House. He hosted that black tie event for America's governors. Can we expect to hear from him, or has the White House already called a lid on the day, indicating that we will not be hearing from the commander-in-chief, given this breaking news?
That's right, Joe. President Biden's right here behind me. He's in residence here at the White House, and he had, by all counts, a lovely dinner at the White House last night. Black tie affair. Everybody had their dinner jacket on, hosting the nation's governors. Obviously, not everyone attended. Governor Ron DeSantis, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders did not attend. There was a musical guest, country star Brad Paisley. Of course, all that was going down. The FAA was closing airspace over Montana, and those Eagles had scrambled from Portland, trying to figure out, was there another object over the skies of Montana. Of course, that was only hours after that object was shot down over Canadian airspace. It was very notable yesterday, though, Joe, a little digression here, but I think we have some time to fill, it was a Canadian defense minister taking the lead. Canada was taking the lead yesterday. It was very clear that the White House, the Pentagon, you weren't going to hear officials. We heard about a phone call between Biden's defense secretary, Lloyd Austin, and his Canadian counterpart. Otherwise, the Canadians took the lead, although it was very notable. It was a U.S. Air Force fighter jet that shot down that object in Canadian airspace.
Lucas Tomlinson, thank you so much for breaking all this down for us. A great job. Lucas Tomlinson at the White House. We'll get back to you as news warrants.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Okay, and now it will play a random video. Hopefully not copyrighted and we get into trouble. Thomas. Bitch. Excuse me. Anyway, this is a lovely, friendly-looking gentleman. I don't know what he's going to say, but his live stream will begin shortly, apparently. La 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 la, music.
Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Kevin Hogan. Let's take a look at our top stories. Show me the clinical trial evidence. That's what a growing number of doctors are saying about COVID booster shots. Meanwhile, a UN initiative reportedly goes after doctors who don't follow official COVID policies. Texas's first ever border czar, the Lone Star State, now has someone supporting the governor and handling the situation at the southern border. More police officers disciplined in connection with Tyree Nichols' death. We bring you analysis on the culture of policing in the country and viewpoints that racism played a role in the tragedy.
Okay, luckily it was news. Sorry about that, everybody. I had to jump off and get myself some coffee. On that note, let's jump across back to Fox News and see where we're at.
We randomly got a news update from Jake Shears from the Sisters, and I wasn't prepared.
We're glad you're back.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome back.
A third object in as many days shot down. It is now in Lake Huron, and the search is underway to determine exactly what it was. Let's bring in Texas Congressman Lance Gooden. He is a member of the House Financial Services Committee. Give us your take on what's going on here. 3 shoot downs in 3 days over Alaska, the Yukon, and now Lake Huron.
Well, I'm embarrassed. I'm very frustrated, and I believe the American people are owed an explanation. I want to know, and I want the American people to know, not just in a classified briefing from members of Congress, but I want the American people to know who is behind these balloons or cylindrical objects or whatever it is they are. If they're serious enough for us to send fighter jets out to shoot down, then I think it's okay for the American people to know who's behind this. I want us to name and shame the countries that are behind these entries into our airspace, and I want us to get tough, and I believe it's most likely China, but whoever it is, after the first balloon, which has been named as Chinese, I'm curious to know if there is any working with other nations, if it's not just the Chinese. But I want to see us get tough. The reason this is happening is because bad behavior has not been addressed by this administration. Whether that bad behavior is illegal border crossings on our southern border or entries into our airspace by the Chinese, we have to stand up to bad behavior if we want it to stop.
Give us your take on the administration's reaction to that first balloon, the Chinese spy flight. It seemed to be a bit muted.
It did. It was slow. I cannot imagine a scenario where it was good policy to allow that balloon to fly all the way across the United States to the coast of South Carolina. Of course, now they're saying how brilliant they were, that they were able to learn so much, and that's why they were so successful with these recent balloon takedowns in the last.
This coming in from David Wartsky, Thomas Fessler. China has spotted an unidentified flying object over the waters near Qingdao, and the authorities were preparing to shoot it down. Again, could this be one of these things these craft have been there forever, and now it's turning into open season on the phenomena?
I just don't think they've been there forever, because I think NORAD has always been able to track these things. And
well, they were filtered out. They weren't in the feed of what people were actually looking at. That's the sad part. So,
and going back to what the previous guy said about blaming and shaming, naming and shaming, we ought to be naming and shaming the Pentagon for covering up the real UFOs for the last 70 years. He says he wants to hear about this, not just in a classified hearing, but everyone deserves to hear the truth. And I love that. Then he took a sharp left turn or right turn, and I did not like that.
Absolutely. I hear you. And sorry if I stepped away from the camera there for a minute. I've had some coffees I was trying to get taken care of, and I couldn't get the coffee bag open, and I had to use the restroom. So, again, this is a one-man production studio with a bunch of people coming in. We're dispersed all over the place.
You had to use the restroom to open the coffee. That's
I know.
Different.
I'll pause it next time.
Few days, but I'm disappointed that we even got to the point where the Chinese are comfortable sending a spy balloon over our nation. This administration has not been tough with China. This country has not been tough with China, and the Chinese must be laughing each and every day at the many ways they have infiltrated our society, our universities, our government, our country as a whole. We have got to stand up to China and those adversaries who want to take us down.
Our farmland, they are buying huge swaths of American farmland.
It seems to be unending. The Chinese are very determined. They do not operate by the same set of rules we do. They're plowing across Africa, bribing governments. They're taking over the African continent. They're doing it anywhere they can. They're having to go to a bit more trouble here in the United States, but they are slowly but surely being very, very successful in taking over farmland here, buying up the real estate, investing in our universities where our current president's documents are stored. It's just one embarrassment after another, and the American people and we're sick of it.
In the last 20 seconds, is the mood on Capitol Hill changing in a direction to confront China, do you think?
I sure hope so. On Thursday, we were all united in voting for a measure to make a statement against these Chinese activities. If there's one issue that could bring us together, just one, I would take it for now. If it's standing firm against China and letting the Chinese government know that we're not going to continue to stand for what we have in the past decade plus. It's time to get tough on China, and I hope this administration will join Republicans in Congress, and my colleagues across the aisle will stand with us against China. I think it's good policy.
Yes, sir.
Congressman.
China detects object entering its airspace near Port City and is preparing to shoot it down.
China is?
Yeah. I put the link in the chat, in the show chat.
The show chat?
Yeah.
China
is preparing to shoot down an unidentified object spotted flying over a port, according to reports. The object has been spotted near the port city of
Why there? Okay.
Qingdao, and an employee of the Marine Development Authority in the city.
I don't know where in the chat did you put it, Gary? Oh, there you go. Got it.
All right.
Okay, here we go. Projectile coming from wonderful Microsoft MSN. China detects object. You gotta be freaking kidding me, right? They're gonna have that much crap at the top here for a mobile device. I hate you, Microsoft. I fucking hate Microsoft. And it's at the top of the page, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a screenshot of this and bring it up a little bit better so we can continue reading. There we go. Let's do it with some screenshots and bring it up this way. All right, here we go. Some hot breaking news coming in. China detects object entering its airspace near Port City and is preparing to shoot it down. According flying over a port. According to reports, the object has been spotted near the city of Quindango, and an employee of a Marine Development Authority of the city's Jimo district said authorities are getting ready to take it down. The PLA, also known as the People's Liberation Army of China, has a naval base at Quindango, according to Bloomberg. The employee had not been told what the object was, but said that fishermen in the area had been warned to be careful. Let me go ahead and zoom in on that and scroll it up a little bit. Reports about the mysterious object.
I think it's Quindao. Quindango sounds like Scaramouche. Scaramouche, will you do the Quindango?
Okay. Reports about the mysterious object have been appeared on the Chinese government's mouthpiece, the Global Times, and in social media posts on Weibo. Interesting. Usually in China, when people vanish and they don't know where they're at, people become disappeared. And in the case of a news report coming up, this have been appeared. Let's move on. It comes in amidst the heightened tensions between the U.S. and China after the U.S. And Canada downed several high-altitude Chinese spy balloons discovered over North America this month. So China, let's go ahead and bring up this image here next. Apparently this must be the type of fighter jet that they're going to be taking and launching after this craft and the port city itself. Let's bring up a shot of that so people have an idea of what we're actually talking about, potentially where this is and what it's going after. Let me bring that around as I can continue on. The U.S. government said one of the balloons shot off the coast of South Carolina had contained spying equipment. That is a new release of information, to say the least. Let's continue on. Beijing fired back and said the balloon, which flew over the United States for 3 days, had been weather equipment. Yeah, right. Coming from the country of the United States, trying to bring up where this stuff is at, but we know that China at many times cannot be the most truthful. A Montana congressman said on Saturday night that he'd been told a unidentified object was spotted over his district, forcing the temporary closure of airspace, and search for it would resume in daylight, which then brought us across to looking for it over Lake Huron, where they found this octagonal-shaped craft, which I have to say is different from any other craft we've seen coming from the Chinese in the past, because usually octagon-shaped objects that have been reported in the past have been coming from UFOs. Larry?
Well, I just wanted to say that this is a very interesting development because it kind of diffuses the tension a little bit here, because now China, and we're blaming China for all of these things, and now China's got one. So, I mean, it should help to diffuse this warmongering that we're seeing stacked on top of the story.
Yeah, but it's almost war posturing of what's going on. We're taking and shooting down objects that are over the United States, and then now we've got China who's going and taking down objects that's over its area. Granted, this is in the Quindango area of China where they're preparing to take it down. Now, they're saying, let's see, anything else here going on?
But I think the important piece on that is that neither country are blaming the other.
Yeah.
No, we're blaming China, aren't we?
No, not officially. Only the people who are on the talking circuits are. The official U.S. stance is we don't know who it came from.
No, we're blaming. Well, yeah, some of the people say it could potentially be China. We're going to have to wait and see where this all goes at this time. Artie, get out of there. No, move.
That is good that they're not blaming each other. I would like to see us play nice together.
Yes, absolutely.
And by the way, the United States is not blameless in being dishonest. They're just as bloody dishonest as China may be, Thomas.
Right. If we remember, going back to yesterday, actually the day before, yesterday morning we had taken down a craft over near Dead Horse, Alaska, where actually one of our viewers, Shelley, was bringing this up yesterday. Very interesting, to say the least. Where's that? But then again on Saturday, early on Saturday, Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, confirmed an object had been shot down by F-22s in Yukon as part of a joint U.S.-Canadian operation. And at that time, we asked our audience, who you think is going to be telling us the most truthful and tell us what's really going on? Overwhelmingly, everyone in the audience picked Canada as being the most truthful organization to look towards for the truth, because they were honestly being a lot more honest and a lot less sketchy than the United States itself. Now, quote, they don't have the ability to put any more eyes on the aircraft until light again because it wasn't showing up on radar this morning. You know, it's an interesting situation that is continuing to develop. Let's go ahead and jump back to where we're at on here, and I believe we're at coming in within about 9 minutes, and we should be having a press briefing coming from the Pentagon shortly. So we'll jump to that as soon as the feed becomes available.
Lance Gooden, Republican of Texas, thanks for being on.
Thank you.
More on our top story, the shootdown of an unidentified aerial object over Michigan's Lake Huron, straight ahead. Plus, congressional...
All right, let's see if I can jump past some commercials here, get to where we're at. All right.
This is not... Special Forces World's Toughest Test.
I almost wonder...
Continuing coverage of our breaking news.
Yes, sir.
I almost wonder if a memo went out to all the news agencies saying, please don't say UFO. You know, call it an unidentified aerial object or something. Because they're all on the same page.
United Kingdom, they're calling it UFOs. It's only in the United States where they're not. UAP is the more term they're going towards, and they are calling an unidentified flying object. So what else is it besides?
I was just typing that in the chat. The UK are saying UFO every single time.
Absolutely. Let's continue on.
There's another unknown aerial object shot out of the sky by U.S. fighter planes, this time over Michigan's Lake Huron. Lucas Tomlinson is live at the White House with the latest. Lucas.
Well, Sean, I was just thinking during the commercial break, what's changed between our appearance yesterday on your show and then today? Remember NORAD putting out a statement last night when the FAA had shut down that airspace over northern Montana near Malmstrom Air Force Base, home to nuclear missile silos, and later saying it lifted that flight restriction, saying that they had detected just a radar anomaly. But now tonight, hours after NORAD, a pair of F-16 fighter jets shot down that object over Lake Huron, NORAD now saying that that object shot down over Lake Huron by the F-16, that was connected to the radar anomaly over Montana. So much has changed, John. This is the fourth time in 8 days the U.S. military has shot down an object over North America. And here's our chart. And also for the third time in the past 3 days. Remember Friday over the northern coast of Alaska, this object shot down. By the way, the debris spread out over the frozen tundra of the largest oil field in North America. The debris search, the effort has been hampered by rough weather. It's minus 20 below zero right now. It's very difficult to reach. Of course, you've got the object yesterday shot down over Canada. And of course, for the third time in 3 days, an object shot down over Lake Huron. Of course, last weekend, that giant 2,000-pound spy craft that was able to do a week-long odyssey across the United States. Back to timeline. Remember when that giant Chinese airship departed China? It was departed on January 21st. It was not detected until it was near or over the Aleutian Islands on January 28th. And President Biden was not presented military
Interesting. If
options
any
until
of you
January
guys in the
31st.
back can take a look. Zach over in Electra RC, also in Australia, who's saying UFO in Australia, lead story. If you got a link to that, Zach, please share it along. We'd be more than happy to cover it as this day continues to evolve.
First days later. So there's a lot of people saying today, what has taken so long? And also a real problem that these are not being able to be detected, John, until they're over U.S. airspace.
A lot of questions about the timing of all of this, especially on that first spy case. Thanks very much, Lucas Tomlinson at the White House.
One of the things Republicans say is a priority for them is investigating your family, your son Hunter.
The public's not going to pay attention to that. They want these guys to do something. If the only thing they can do is make up things about my family, it's not going to go very far.
There's President Biden claiming the public doesn't much care about the mounting legal investigations into his family, but
as we're waiting
it's not
to come
just
up
the probe.
I don't need to hear about that. It's the last thing we need to jump into. Gentlemen in the back, what is your feeling on this so far? Larry, since you're up there. You're muted, my friend.
Well, I'm excited because something is happening that, we're getting a barrage of these things almost daily. And that's unheard of in my whole life. I've never seen anything like this. Now, I'm not really excited that these are alien, but I'm hoping that something good will.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, Larry. It's an interesting situation. West, your thoughts?
If these are something non-human, my guess is these are ultra-terrestrial type devices that the government is now picking up. In fact, Chris Mellon tweeted a little while ago that now we're paying attention to these anomalous tracks that we've been able to see for a while, but have been filtering out, something to that effect. So I'm hopeful that the cat is going to have to come out of the bag a little bit with the extraordinary action they've taken.
Yeah. Twitter is blowing up with regards to this. The Pentagon is definitely waiting until a kickoff, after kickoff to start the briefing. Gee, we have to wonder why.
Well, I mean, you got to at least acknowledge the importance of this story, that it's been dominating most of the news today, even with the Super Bowl going on.
Yeah. Yeah, the response on the audience, we're still at 1,165 viewers right now, a little bit of waning as the Super Bowl kickoff starts and everything. Great. I appreciate everyone staying out here and being a part of this, at least monumental broadcast. For, if anything, this is the first time we're getting heavy-duty coverage of the phenomena on all news stations.
This takedown is the third over North America in as many days, and the fourth since last Saturday. Here's Congressman Jack Bergman on Fox News Live earlier today.
An F-16 using an AIM-9 missile had shot down an octagonal structure over Lake Huron. The altitude was about 20,000 feet. And at that time, I asked the question, what's the plan for recovering the debris? And they said they were working on it and then they would get back.
A U.S. official says the object was first detected over Montana yesterday and that President Biden gave the orders to shoot it down. This latest news comes after two partial U.S. airspace closures and 2 U.S. military takedowns of other high-altitude objects, all in the last 3 days. The FAA closed and reopened U.S. airspace over Michigan earlier today and over Montana last night. And the U.S. military shot down 2 other aerial objects, one over Canada yesterday, the other over Alaska on Friday. Officials tell Fox News the 3 latest objects are of unknown origin and are smaller than the Chinese spy flight shot down off the coast of South Carolina February 4th. Stay with Fox News Channel for the latest developments on this breaking story.
I have more breaking news, Thomas.
A celebration on the streets.
Yes, take it, West.
This just in, the European Space Agency has discovered a small meteorite that will, quote unquote, safely impact Earth's atmosphere tonight over France. They're expecting that it will burn up in the atmosphere, but it was another one of these last second discoveries, and it's big enough to evidently be something that people will be able to see.
Interesting.
Oh, for fuck's sake. I mean, come on. One disaster at a time, people.
Yeah. Holy cow. Screw Super Toilet. I'm watching my 6. Better believe it. What is Australia UFO link? Has anyone found it yet? Electra RC. There's a link right there. Let me go ahead and see if I can get it out of this chat. See, Electra RC did go ahead and share that from news.com.au. This story is coming up right now saying, well, this is it's coming from news.com.au, but it's not an Australian object. It's the same one that's being reported over the United States, but it's just in the media within Australia at this point in time. So no UFO over Australia at this time. More of anything, talking about the situations that we're seeing, what we're dealing with, and potentially what's happening around, between the United States and Canada.
And we are now hitting the time that the Pentagon was supposed to go live.
Not yet. We've got Trey Gowdy, also known as Lindsey Graham's little bitch.
God, thanks for watching. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Trey Gowdy, and it's Sunday night in America. We begin with a Fox News alert. We are awaiting
I know I got into trouble yesterday, but
after the U.S. military shot down yet another unidentified flying object, this time over Lake Huron in Michigan earlier today. Yesterday, an American fighter jet shot down an unidentified flying object at the request of our ally to the north in Canada. That object was shot down over the Yukon Territory. Friday, the Pentagon shot down an object off the coast of Alaska, and of course last week, there was a balloon shot down off the coast of South Carolina. What are these unidentified flying objects? Who sent them? And for what purpose? And why are we now
calling them unidentified flying objects? At least Trey's got the balls to do it.
just discovering these objects? Have they been flying all along and we just found out? Or is this a new chapter in what is becoming a very frosty relationship between China and the United States? Congressman Mike Waltz represents the great state of Florida and serves on the House Committees on Foreign Affairs, Armed Services, and Intelligence. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us, especially late notice. What in the world is going on with unidentified flying objects being shot down in North America? I mean, we got Alaska and Canada and Michigan. What is going on?
Well, Trey, I think we'll learn some more.
Pause for a second. Someone's got their hands up in the back. Andy?
I know Zach's put in about the Australian one, but I know it's been on Twitter that the Uruguayan Air Force is investigating the sighting of blinking lights in the sky also at the moment, just some minutes.
Look everywhere. There's UFOs everywhere.
They're popping up all over the place at the moment.
Well,
Nothing in
maybe
the UK skies, but we got it cloudy, so.
Oh, boy.
Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Just while you pause for a minute, I just want to bring attention to I think it was Best Man's comment. He said that he looks like Anderson Cooper with worse hair.
Good one. All right.
That is Anderson Cooper brought from Wish.
Yes.
That's what that is.
Another kind of breaking news, a tweet from Marco Rubio. I've put it in the chat if you want to bring it up.
1 second, sir. Yes, let me jump to that right now. Man, I can't even take care of Cupcake. On this note, let me put on the Cupcake cam to see if I can keep an eye on where she is right now. Okay, she is not anywhere to be seen in the backyard. Maybe she's already going on the path to the middle part of the forest where she'll get lost. Okay, you put this in the show chat.
Disclosure.
Gotcha.
Disclosure.
This disclosure backroom chat. Yes. Let's go ahead and find that little Marco Rubio here. Copy this link. Let's go across to this window here because I don't want to open the Twitter app. That's not the Twitter app. Let's go to this one here. Man, this is just like jump around as things are going on. Let's go for it. Coming from little Marco Rubio, down from the great state of Florida, Marco is saying that the last 72 hours revealed to the public what is happening for years. Unidentified aircraft routinely operating over restricted U.S. airspace. This is why I pushed to take this seriously and created a permanent UAP task force 2 years ago. And he's pointing to a story over at the Hill. Oh, there you go. Rubio on Pentagon UFO report. There's stuff flying over military installations. And remember, this is something big that Elizondo, who has been, talking about for a long time. We're dealing with a lapse of national security due to inept leadership within the Pentagon, who's decided to ignore all of these types of craft for the fear that they might be demons or the devil itself. And we don't want to be a part of this. We're going to ignore everything we can, and we're not going to listen to it. We're not going to let any word out on it, and we're going to keep everything quiet. It's like the biggest, dirtiest secret we've had for a long period of time that is truly now everything is coming to bear.
Pentagon briefings.
Yeah.
Pentagon briefings are fine, but America needs to hear from the commander-in-chief. I would expect President Biden to go before the nation and answer what every American is asking. Why are these happening now? Why are they happening with such frequency? Where are they coming from? What's the purpose?
Quick thing. Biden has been asked this once in a press briefing, and his only answer was he came back with a snide remark and he said, go talk to Barack. We don't want to hear from Barack. Yeah. We would like to hear from the President of the United States. Well, at least the people who's telling him what to say about this.
He don't want to talk about it, and he don't know nothing.
Yes, yes.
He don't want to talk about it, and he don't know nothing.
Yeah. Gary, you were saying something, my friend?
It's 20 past, but I want to just point out, isn't the press briefing supposed to start?
Okay, well, go ahead and get that. See if it's started.
I don't know whether
or
it's
not
on
yet.
or not because it's not showing on mine.
It's not started yet.
Okay.
It's still running late.
But there can always efficiencies can always be found.
You know, Congressman, all of what you just described
actually, let me go back a little bit. I may have gone
regardless
a
of whether
little
China
bit.
had anything to do with the. You know,
now's not we still have a threat, defense budget, climate, Navy. You need to have a credible tomorrow. China.
For increasing military spending in light of all the talks about cuts and the looming debt limit.
Well, look, to your point, Trey, I think you're absolutely right. We have to reduce our dependencies. This is an adversary in the Chinese Communist Party, one like we have never faced before. They can shut down our pharmaceuticals tomorrow. We have the left driving us towards a Green New Deal, yet China controls 90% of the global solar panel and battery supplies. We've got to get our supply chains out of there, step one. And then step two is we have to have a credible military deterrent. They are tripling the size of their nuclear arsenal. They have more ICBMs than we do now. That was just announced. Their Space Force is launching more into space than us and the rest of the world combined, and their Navy is now larger than ours. So you will always hear me push the Pentagon for efficiencies, not to be focused on things like climate and DEI and that kind of nonsense. But at the same time, this is not the time to cut back major cuts in our defense budget when we're dealing with them, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and we still have a threat of global terrorism thanks to Biden's catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan. So now's not the time, but there can always efficiencies can always be found.
Larry, my friend, you have your hand up.
Congressman, all of what you just described.
Larry?
Yeah.
You have your hand up, my friend?
I don't see why we have to spend more money on military. We're already spending fucking $800 billion, okay? $800 billion a year, and it's probably more than that. And why can't we just take some of that, some of what we're doing and put it on hold, for Christ's sake, and devote those, but no, it's always got to be more money.
I hear you. It's just something for us to take a look at and try and understand of what's potentially going on. And, they are spending a lot. Now, remember, for the money that's been spent and it's been allocated to the Pentagon, the particular money that's coming out at this point should be more than enough for the federal government to actually go ahead and do their investigation of UAP, because they've said whatever funds are necessary are there to be spent on the research, on the identification, on everything, on having teams when stuff like this is going on and there's sightings and we have craft that are in the air, that we have teams from the RO office that will be deployed to these locations to observe, to collect intelligence data, to collect if there's crash recoveries or anything. They're supposed to be fully equipped. And it's not just what came out in NDAA 2023 that everyone's saying great about the Whistleblower Act. No, this goes back a year ago that was supposed to be it was signed on December 27th, 2021. And they had 6 months to get this up and going. And I think it was 6 months. Guess what? They failed. And when the new version of RO came out with the new requirements, they were given another 180 days to go ahead and get this operationalized. What we're seeing here is a renegade I'll say it again, outside the scope of our congressional laws that are put in place. And if this is opening the door, this is a point where we have to start looking at and taking Lloyd Austin, who's the Secretary of Defense, Ron Moultrie, or any of the other people, including Avril Haines, who is our, what do you call it, a Director of National Intelligence. All of these people are responsible for this act that's going on. If they had done their job in fiscal year 2022 for the military, for all the funds that came out, we should have had teams already identifying and seeing this, and not just it being, a sudden thing. We turned on the feed and look at all the stuff we have floating around that we were ignoring. It just calls military incompetence, congressional hearings. I think we need to go ahead and start bringing all these people up in front of a very uncomfortable congressional hearing. And I just don't want to have a congressional hearing where you have people who are, apologizing. If they broke the law, they're in violation of the law. Throw them out of their position. If they need to go to jail or whatever it is, we need to do it, because this is a known act of incompetence. They're knowingly doing this. They're knowingly covering their eyes, ears, and they're not allowing any information that they think wants to come out available, because they classify every single piece of information about it as a matter of national security. Well, you know what? Look where their national security laws got us today.
Yeah.
I'm pissed. And I will be pissed, and we should all be pissed.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we should also be is reading between the lines a little bit. And I was just thinking, the fact that we've had both Senator Gillibrand and Marco Rubio both come out and explicitly tie these events to the UAP legislation that they passed, I think is them tacitly trying to tell us, guys, this is stuff that, Marco Rubio's tweet said this. These are things that have been going on for quite a while. And I think he's pointing us to the fact that these are the same kind of unidentified aerial phenomenon that they believe was important enough to pass all that legislation about.
Yeah.
So I think what's happening is the government's maybe getting the message slowly out to us. Yeah. And maybe we can finally get public hearings on this, because now there's going to be enough public interest and enough ability for us to increase the pressure and demand it.
Right. Just really quickly, for any of you out there that were buffering, I saw that in the chat. Usually we don't get that, so I took the quality of the stream and I dropped this down to about 50% of where we usually hit, which is still more than what you'll get in other places. We like to run with production quality as much as we can. And, it's an interesting situation, West, and all of it, if it comes from, we were filtering the stuff out, we didn't want our people to see that. And it was a matter of policy and software and code of what they put in place to support it. We have a big, problem within our government. And it's not just within our government. It's with all of our signals intelligence. It's as if there are things going on these screens, we're filtering it out because, you know what, the people who are watching this, they don't need to know. But if they don't need to know, and there aren't people who are really watching it and understanding it, it's like you've got this hidden version of the military or their government that's in place that's, the problem with it is starting to show its face, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Thomas,
and they've been overridden.
And Thomas, you're sort of reflecting on maybe the last 10 or 20 years. We have a 70-year history of cover-up.
I know that.
And
no, I'm going back to...
I know you know.
Yeah.
I know you know. But I'm saying they're covering up more than just, what Marco Rubio is talking about. They have history that they could come in front of Congress and say, okay, guys, look, here's what's been happening. And it's been happening since, blah, blah, blah. And talk about the Malmstrom incident, talk about all these other things. But no, they've been covering it up for 70 years and they're still trying to do so. And I also don't like the conflation of these objects with, which Marco Rubio conflated these with the actual real UAP. that are definitely extraterrestrial in origin. But that conflation, if it helps to drive the real UAP hearings forward, I'm all for it.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and jump back to this video here and keep it going. I just want to keep us up to date on the news as it's happening.
Is true regardless of whether China had anything to do with the 3 most recent unidentified flying objects. So do you think that the balloon that we do know was connected to China, and if it is true that the other objects are as well, do you think there'll be more of an urgency to do what you just discussed and reduce our dependency or reliance on that country?
Well, hopefully, Trey, I mean, this is what I'm calling a Sputnik moment. And just as Sputnik woke up the country to the Cold War that we were in the 1950s, I hope this wakes the country up to the Cold War that we're in now. And that when you see made in China, it's not just a jobs or a union issue. It's a national security issue. Put it down. Made in America is where we have to be for our own national security. So I hope this is a wake-up call. This is a very visible, I think, symbol now of the massive tidal wave of Chinese espionage that national security professionals know has been happening for many years in our universities, in our tech sector, in our businesses, through massive cyber attacks. But hopefully this will galvanize the country to take decisive action. We have to.
Congressman Mike Waltz on all the committees that matter as it relates to China. Thank you so much for joining us on a Sunday night.
Three nights. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, don't want to get licensed music here.
Breaking news, Lou Elizondo has posted a tweet where he calls these balloons.
Okay. Interesting.
And our friend Christian Morales has replied to him.
I think he's trying to get the truth that they're
trying to get the live stream feed up that's not mixed with Chrome. Well, you know what? It's going to have to come in Chrome. It's going to have to be mixed with your audio, otherwise it's not going to work. Okay, so there's a live stream view. It's waiting. Oh, God. Ads. I can scroll it good. This, zoom it up. There we go. I'm a small screen device. Bring it across. I've got the feed up ready, so when it's just about to get started. So we've got this cache at this point ready to roll on the overall situation. So we're just about to be going into the live stream event from the Department of Defense to talk about this. Now, it also welcome Syrup to the show. I've got some things to cover here first. Coming in from W. Decker. I need to go ahead and find this and bring it up real quick. I need to find Lou Elizondo again.
I just sent it to you in the chat if you want.
I've got it.
I think they said the briefing was taking place now. That's what the chat was saying. I don't know if I just joined late.
Let's see. Not here. Waiting for event to begin. Let's check live TV. See if we've got it there. No, it's not on live television as well. So rather than leaving dead space.
He's listening.
We are back with a Fox News alert as we await word from the Pentagon about the latest object shot down over North America. Joining me now is former military diplomat to Asia and Pentagon official Navy Captain Brent Sadler. Captain, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Diplomat, I'm all for diplomacy, but I've never been one and you have been one. So kind of walk us through, how do these conversations go? Does it start at an ambassador level? I mean, how does the U.S. communicate with China, about the balloon? And then what's our response when they say, oh, that was a weather balloon?
Well, there's a couple avenues that I think we've already been kind of shut to us, and that's not by lack of effort by the Biden team. The first is what happens twice a year, an MMCA. It's a consultation between both the Chinese People's Liberation Navy and the U.S. military based out of Hawaii, Indo-PACOM, to talk about unprofessional interactions in the airspace. That's one venue that hasn't been exercised yet. The Chinese have refused to show up at that in the past. The other was just recently the Secretary of Defense tried to place a call on a hotline to his peers in Beijing, and he was also rebuffed on this specific issue of the first balloon. So what's happening in Beijing right now, most likely, is the ambassador is talking to his peers, making a formal protest in the form of a démarche. Again, a sternly worded document, but it's really military posture and disposition behind those words that'll really echo in Beijing and have an effect. And so it's really critical we not change our forward posture in international airspace and international waters in the East Asia area.
I hate to ask experts to speculate, but that is not going to keep me from doing it because the questions right now, frankly, outpace the answers, at least with the last three objects. So do you surmise that the rejection or the rebuffing of Secretary Austin could be over a visit to Taiwan or the U.S. position towards Taiwan, or is something else going on?
I would bet mostly there isn't a uniform voice on this issue yet, or a consensus in Beijing on how to respond, which makes it clear that they weren't planning on this becoming an issue. Secretary Blinken was supposed to be making a trip to Beijing, and there's some speculation that the diplomats and the senior political leadership, Xi Jinping himself, were hoping to have a charm campaign to kind of soften their sharp edge that's been alienating much of the world and certainly not been helpful to their cause. But efforts that have been in place for many months before that, a very strong wolf warrior diplomacy and a more forward-leaning military, I think kind of got ahead of themselves in this case. And I think it was just a case that they weren't ready to talk.
You mentioned Secretary Blinken had a trip planned to China, and it was, I think the word is postponed. Is there significance to the word postponed as opposed to canceled in diplomat language?
Not to my knowledge. I think both of them just mean they're not taking it off the table, so there's some hope that if the conditions are right in the future, cancel could be interpreted also just this event. But I think the language is important from the U.S. side, that there's more hope that there'll be better times in the relationship ahead than all of the actions on the ground in our airspace would indicate.
Yeah. Take a look and see if this briefing is kicking on.
I just looked at French news, the French news channel, and they're saying UFO as well.
Right. And if the
UFO shot down,
the briefing isn't starting at this point. So
strategic nuclear assets is did these balloons also have the ability to detect radionuclides and maybe having other more sophisticated sensors to try to pinpoint where our strategic arsenal is located? And that would be an indication of perhaps a changing nuclear posture in Beijing. There's been speculation of them changing from a no first use to a launch on warning, which would be a significant change in their nuclear deterrent posture. And this could be a preliminary indication of that.
We got less than a minute. I'm going to ask you a question that could take an hour, but don't take an hour. At what point does President Biden pick up the phone and call President Xi Jinping and say, look, we got to talk about this?
Well, I don't think he needs to pick up the phone. He needs to talk first and foremost to the American public and level with us. This has gone on far too often and in far too short period of time frame for him not to get on national television and level with the American public and say what this is, what kind of threat it poses, and more importantly, to signal to the Chinese that American resolve is intact and that we do take this as an infringement of our sovereignty. And I think that's what he should do rather than calling Beijing.
Yeah. This is just news coverage of an important time in our life, and we're waiting for the federal government to go ahead and come around with their streaming service. I've tried in multiple browsers. It's all the same. It's still coming up with nothing there at this point. Nope. Says it's going to be live. Not yet. We're looking to Fox News to see what's going on next. Yeah, it's an interesting situation. It's been an interesting day relative to everything that we've been covering. If we, take a step back as we're
Joining
waiting
us
for
now
this,
is clinical psychologist.
Here we go. Conference to come in. Let me go ahead and get this artwork back up again here. Earlier in the day, we had, if anyone's joining us later, we haven't seen this earlier, we'll just do a quick recap on this. We had tankers that were going, and let me get this across. Let me shrink it down a little bit. Coming out of Pittsburgh, we actually had a Boeing KC-135T Stratotanker going ahead, and we had them circling over Lake Michigan and, more importantly, over Lake Huron. And those were supporting multiple I believe it was F-16 guys or F-14s. I think it was an F-16 today, right?
Those were F-16s today.
Yeah, F-16s who shot missiles not aimed at blowing something up, but aimed to go ahead and take something down, punch a hole in it, basically compromise the vessel itself. And it sounds like it was successful. Now it's just coming up and identifying what's out there. Now, as we're waiting for this press conference to take place, there's also, we just got word that Lou Elizondo has given us an additional tweet saying what we're dealing with here. And great to see Lou speaking up in a time like this. Well, did he do a reply to something, maybe?
I sent it to you in the disclosure chat.
Gotcha. Give me a second here. Copy. Let's go to it here. Okay, coming to us today at 11 o'clock this morning. Actually, this is from yesterday.
Oh.
This is from yesterday. This is February 12th. Actually, it was today. What am I talking about? February 12th, today at 11 a.m. Friends, it's been a wild few days. I've been monitoring the situation closely. As many of you know, Montana is practically my backyard. The recent shoot-downs of balloons only underscores the importance to having full situation awareness of our skies. So the important thing is it's either grammar or it's the recent shoot-downs of balloons. Do we know what time the object was shot down?
Yeah, around 1:45 in the afternoon.
So that doesn't include...
That's correct.
This. So it only underscores the importance of having full situational awareness in our skies. And this is what Lou has been talking about, is what I was just saying, what he has been talking about in regards to the situation. Existing policies in the Department of Defense knowingly hide all this information from people because they don't even trust our radar operators to know what's in our skies. Doesn't that just sound really screwed up?
Yes. It very much does sound screwed up.
And how many of our systems are set up like this? And how much view do we not have with all of our great signals intelligence? So it's great signals, we can see everything, but we're going to filter it. No, if they go back, they've got the recordings of this stuff, so it sounds like really the software and or hardware that they're using to display the signals, they're going to have to go ahead and rewrite that from a technology standpoint.
I really think what happened is that Chinese balloon last week flew over, and they realized that the systems were blocking these signals because they had decided to stop paying attention to any UAPs. And then that Chinese balloon got through because of that. And now they've turned those filters off and reacting to all of these all of a sudden. And Congress is pushing on them because they've had the classified briefings and know these things are out there.
Yeah. It's an interesting situation, to say the least. Looks like Cupcake's about ready to come in. I'll have to go ahead and grab her. Hopefully this conference will start soon. Let me go ahead and let's jump across to the Fox over on the DVR. And if they're going to cover it live, it hasn't happened yet. So that link we have for
a lengthy amount of time.
Gowdy, go away. Hold on a second. That link that we've got for the web.
Thomas, you got a super chat.
Nothing's happened. Thank you very much, Gary, for reminding me about that super chat. Holy cow. Let's find that. Where did I put it? Here we go. All right. I got to see. Oh, we've had several super chats come in. Holy cow. I have not been paying attention. I am sorry, folks. It's been a crazy day, to say the least. Let's go ahead and take a look where that's at. All right, I want to throw some special thanks out to some supporters of Disclosure tonight. Remember, every donation we get that comes in Disclosure tonight goes back into the production of our funds. We're so greatly humbled and thankful for your love and support for this channel and having us do everything that we do. So greatly thankful for everyone's support. Larry Gurn, great coverage. Thank you, Thomas. Jonathan Horvat. Yeah, okay, sorry about that, Jonathan. You can get in trouble for that one. All right, Susan Goes, time traveling Asians, pangolins. Thank you for all the great coverage. Ant-Man saying thank you again. Thomas, for all you do here, man. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Also, then we've got from Jonathan saying only 95 balloons to go. That sounds like a good song, 95 balloons of what? Air on the wall. We'll figure it out there anyway. David, thank you very much for that super chat from everybody. I appreciate the love and support that's coming in, and let's go ahead and see where we're at with the whole situation. Let's jump back into clear that overlay and get back to the show. We've got the tweet from Lou Elizondo. Anything new from Lou? No. Still quiet.
Does anybody know who Roswell Incident is on Twitter? Is that guy legit or
who?
His name is Roswell Incident on Twitter.
I've never looked into him, so I really can't say.
I guess he said, "Gotta say, for my first Pentagon press briefing, this has been strange so far. Not what I expected, and the briefing hasn't started yet." That was 42 minutes ago. I don't know.
Yeah, well, the briefing was pushed back in time. We all know that. If we go to the link on any of the major channels right now, everything is. There was a link for it on Fox News that would said live event about to play, and now when it pops up, there's nothing here.
Gotcha. Could that possibly mean they kept it confidential, or?
I don't know. It sounds like they didn't like the message that was going to be given, and if they're late, they're the ones who scheduled it, right?
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find out where the hell Brave browser is now. Let's do a new window. Try this link over in Brave, see if that can get us anything. I can always pipe in the audio. Yeah, on Brave, on everything, it basically comes up with an unplayable link.
Yeah, I just did a check of all the major news channels, nothing.
Yeah, so it'll be here as soon as it's there. It's just going to be a matter of time before it hits, and it's... does it surprise you that the federal government is going and delaying at this point in time, or it's hard to tell?
Press conferences get pushed back all the time. It's usually if there's last minute information they need to gather to mention.
Absolutely. I can go ahead and also just take a look and see what we've got out. Let's get into the Zoom. Let's go ahead and take a look out on the feed right now and what's all being discussed. It's a matter of, yesterday it's like kind of we were generally right in front of the news cycle of what was going on. Here we go. This is a fresh one that just hit. Christopher Sharp a minute ago. Christopher is the editor and writer and producer of everything for the Liberation Times, a phenomenal guy who's been dedicated to this, covering it with real coverage, saying General Van Herk of NORAD has not ruled out quote-unquote aliens in terms of recent UFO events. Pretty extraordinary to say the freaking least, and if you haven't heard it anywhere, you just heard it here. However, we must work from the basis of tempering our expectations. Oh, meaning that they're going to go ahead and continue to lie to us, and they're not going to tell us the truth. We're not going to rule it out, but don't expect to hear a lot, in other words. Yeah, interesting to say the least. Where are we out from that one? Missed the balloon drama. Oh, yeah, coming from AVM, who's also in the chat, if you're still around. We've got a story from, actually, Christopher Mellon did a reply. Let's go back to him. It's hard to see it on the small one. I want to go to... Let's bring it up. Do it live. All right, let's look at tweets and replies. What is Christopher Mellon? Christopher Mellon is the former Deputy Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, for a former Minority Staff Director of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. So he's kind of been around this stuff from a government perspective, and good thing is he's on our side. Let's take a look and see what he is saying right now. Did a reply. After the Chinese spy balloon was brought down by the U.S., has been more, quote, more closely scrutinized. Skies at high altitudes, skies at high altitudes, skies at these, and enhancing radar, which may partly explain...
Sorry, kicking in. Couple of people are saying, Anonymous, or Tim, is saying that it's live now, the
news conference
update. He's put a link in the chat.
National intelligence and unique position
right.
to know what
where's that
Russian
in the regular chat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that link open. They're not.
Right
they're
at the
not
bottom on chat.
there yet.
Yeah.
It's just showing
All right.
Fox News at the moment.
Got it.
Okay.
Oh no! Wait, I do apologize.
Let me get to here. Bring this around. Go to show that.
He's keeping dropping the link, Thomas.
I've got oops, something went wrong. Let's try it from here. I know why it went wrong. Hold on. My fault. Let's go back to here. I'll have it in 1 second.
You guys go to Roswell incident on...
We determined that we needed to enhance.
All right, this is coming from Live News Now, which is another cable program. Let's go ahead
you want
and
to
take
skip
a look.
back a bit. It starts where the Pentagon logo is. It's not that long ago.
Right
You'll
here?
see the Pentagon. No, further.
What's your time code on it? Was it just recently?
Further. Yeah, it's only recently. It's probably in the last 10. No.
Well, it looks like it's starting.
It's before this. That is the
in the United States Senate. She is
now in the past
link is
hour,
happening
the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has confirmed
been here
that
27
the
years, and we thank her for her quiet, effective, really crucial work to preserve the hearings, even when Senator Toomey and I don't say much of note.
You see the clock at the bottom of
we appreciate your good work for this country.
I've
And
got
your unsung hero as a public
went.
servant, contracted or not as a public servant. So thank you. Thank you.
It's not in Safari. It's got to be in
This hearing is in a hybrid format.
those open.
4 of our witnesses are joining us in person, sitting in front of Senator Toomey and me. Ms. Maury is joining remotely. One or more of our committee colleagues may attend from their offices. Yesterday was the first of the month for millions of Americans. That means the rent was due. For many renters, that rent keeps going up and up and up. 2 weeks ago in this committee, we heard from witnesses about the soaring cost of housing, how it hurts the millions of families priced out of buying their first home,
but I've got something
and
else
imperils the
playing
renters
audio.
who are just one
No, I'm
illness
trying to help you.
or
Can you
job
turn off
loss or
whatever's
chronic
I'm trying to
error
find that, Gary.
away from eviction, as one of our
Sorry.
witnesses
I'm trying to
documented in
find
his
out where that
book.
audio is coming from.
This
and I can't
problem
find
in
it.
squeezing
Playing
people all
somewhere in
across the
background,
country,
and I'm
working
going
all
from
kinds
my
of jobs,
windows
even
trying
jobs
to go ahead
that were
and click
supposed to
them
be
and
a
shut
ticket
them
to the middle
down.
class. It's not a new problem.
It's
For
very
decades,
frustrating to me.
so many Americans have struggled to...
I found it. Okay, you were saying, sir.
Okay, right. I'm about to give you the timestamp. The way I'm going to do it. Okay. You'll see on the bottom where the ticker is on that live now. It has the time. What time it is.
All right, hold on. I've got a link here. Just throw it in the regular chat or somewhere where I can get it, and it's just not going to be missing with everything else.
I can't do it at the exact spot where it is. You have.
On.
It was at 7:10 p.m. ET. So you see that on the bottom left of the screen.
Okay, live from Fox. This is the current one that's live.
Yeah, it started at 7:10. That's what it says. At 7:10 p.m. ET is where.
So this already happened, right?
Seems to have.
Yeah, it did.
7:10.
No, now it's at 4:38. 5.
Tell me about it, Google user.
The time is jumping all over the place.
I know. Where it says 7:10 p.m. ET.
Oh, yeah. All right, so we're at... So now that's at 5:50. That's at 7:50 now.
We'll get there, people. Bear with us.
Five, 6, 7. All right, let's go to here.
Oh no, hang on, sorry. I got the wrong bit. Sorry. Oh, fucking
I don't know, where is it?
Reporting.
David H. Shortman's just said it's.
Hey, before we jump into the question, just a reminder, everyone, please mute your phones.
Oh, yeah,
I've got it now.
Thank you. Sounds
It's
like we have
a
an open
call-in.
mic out there. My
Yeah,
apologies.
it is,
Over to
yeah.
you, ma'am.
Great. Tara, thanks so much for the question and for dialing in also at
Well, it's before that.
Air National Guard, and we had an AWACS on station from
Just
Tinker.
before that. Just before that, you'll see the.
We're at 6:24. We're at 7:24 if we need to get to 7:10. So we're now at 7:22 p.m. They just have other text on there that's...
Hang on, chat. I'll deal with your drama in a minute. Just give me a second.
to provide an operational perspective.
No, it's still going.
Well, Thomas,
You'll see the Fox News
I just
guy.
want to say thank you for the super chats from Jonathan Horvath and Florence Tracy. Thank you very much.
Yeah. 7:15. That's 7:15. We're getting close. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. There we go. 10.
We're going to hear from a potential general here from the Department of Defense. We will take that to you as soon as it can here on Live Now from Fox. As soon as there's audio coming in, this is a Zoom press conference. So as you might imagine, they're still dealing with a lot of technology and making sure everyone gets their questions asked. So we're going to continue to listen to this one here on Live Now from Fox and hopefully hear it.
Give me 1 second here. If that's all they're going to do, I need us to go back a couple seconds here. I want to...
I'm not sure if it's happening on the YouTube stream, but we're not getting any audio from that back here.
I know. Well, yeah, you're not going to. Let me...
That's fine. I just want to make sure what's happening to the YouTube.
Right. Well, you guys are... Your audio is going to double up. Yeah, so I did this in the wrong browser. So,
no worries.
I'll get it going for you in 1 second. I just got this going here. Let's get this going for the audience. The audience should hear this, but you're not. So give me a second. We'll get it going.
Pentagon in the coming moments. So we're going to hear from a potential general here from the Department of Defense. We will take that to you as soon as it can here on Live Now from Fox. As soon as there's audio coming in, this is a Zoom press conference. So as you might imagine, they're still dealing with a lot of technology and making sure everyone gets their questions asked. So we're going to continue to listen to this one here on Live Now from Fox and hopefully hear it.
All right, it's starting up finally. So I've got that. Now I just have to get this in the other browser. And guys in the back, if you talk, you're going to hear yourself echo for a minute until I can get this to the right place.
This is a...
Here we go.
This is a look there at the Pentagon as we're awaiting a press conference from the Pentagon on this Chinese, or on this new object, this fourth object that was being shot down this Sunday afternoon over Lake Huron, Michigan territory. We're hearing from representatives about it and what it means. So we're going to continue to follow this here on Live Now from Fox. Of course, this is just a continued press conference, something we've been following the last few days. Here on Live Now from Fox. We're going to continue to listen in, and we'll take it to you as soon as it can. But obviously, this is the map we're watching here. Pentagon update coming momentarily as the object was shot down on Friday, an object was shot down on Saturday, and now an object shot down on Sunday. So this is the fourth different thing that's been shot down since February the 4th. So this is the fourth object shot down over Lake Sunday Huron. About that new information we're still waiting on Saturday. We're going to continue to hopefully listen in here on Live Now from Fox and hopefully hear this press conference coming up soon.
And we're just about to get going on that. Let's skip ahead a little bit more. Is there no audio on this thing?
Thomas, just doesn't matter.
To protect.
No, it was blank.
An aerospace down of an...
From Fox, if we can.
There we go.
And looking at Friday and Saturday on Live Now from Fox.
Same place now. There was just no audio for that.
Secretary Dalton, are you on the line?
Yes, hi, good evening.
Great. Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us tonight, particularly so short notice and on Super Bowl Sunday here in the U.S., no less. In light of tonight's takedown of an airborne object over Lake Huron, Michigan, we wanted to ensure you had the latest information and also answer any questions you have in order to provide any additional context on NORAD's efforts to monitor, track, and appropriately address these kinds of objects. Joining us tonight is Assistant Secretary of Defense for Homeland Defense and Hemispheric Affairs, Melissa Dalton, and General Glenn Van Herk, Commander of North American Aerospace Defense Command and U.S. Northern Command. Today's discussion is on the record. I'll turn it over to Assistant Secretary Dalton, who will provide some brief comments, followed by General Van Herk, and then we'll take your questions. With that, over to you, Secretary Dalton.
Great. Thanks so much, Pat. And good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining the call. We do aim to be transparent about our military operations, and so we wanted to provide an update on the most recent Homeland Defense operations that occurred this afternoon. I'm going to provide a brief overview and then turn to General Van Herk to provide an operational perspective as well. In light of the People's Republic of China balloon that we took down last Saturday, we have been more closely scrutinizing our airspace at these altitudes, including enhancing our radar, which may at least partly explain the increase in objects that we've detected over the past week. We also know that a range of entities, including countries, companies, research organizations, operate objects at these altitudes for purposes that are not nefarious, including legitimate research. That said, because we have not yet been able to definitively assess what these recent objects are, we have acted out of an abundance of caution to protect our security and interests. The spy balloon from the PRC was, of course, different in that we knew precisely what it was. These most recent objects do not pose a kinetic military threat, but they're passed in proximity to sensitive DoD sites, and the altitude that they were flying could be a hazard to civilian aviation and thus raise concerns. Again, as we have said, we do not assess that the recent objects pose any direct threat to people on the ground, and we are laser focused on confirming their nature and purpose, including through intensive efforts to collect debris in the remote locations where they have landed after being shot down. We are in close coordination and cooperation with the Government of Canada, as well as through NORAD with the Canadian military. Thanks very much. Look forward to your questions, and I'll hand it over to General Van Herk.
Thanks, Secretary Dalton. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today and provide you an update. Every day, North American Aerospace Defense Command and United States Northern Command monitor the approaches to North America and the United States of America across all domains. And yesterday evening, approximately 16:45 or 4:45 Eastern Time on 11 February, NORAD detected a radar contact in Canadian airspace, approximately 70 or so miles north of the United States border. We began tracking that radar contact, and when it became clear it was unknown, following normal NORAD procedures, it was not talking to the Federal Aviation Administration, no squawk, and approaching our air defense identification zone. I scrambled F-15 fighters from Portland, Oregon, along with a KC-135 tanker support from Fairchild Air Force Base, Washington, to go investigate, to identify what the radar contact was. At 1800 Eastern or 6 p.m. Eastern, the radar track crossed into the United States sovereign airspace. At 7:04 Eastern time, the F-15s with their tanker support were on station to investigate. We continued to investigate, and what's important to point out, this is near dark, within a half hour, 45 minutes of dark. We continued to investigate, to identify, locate the object. We were unsuccessful. It's also important to point out in this part of the United States, we did not have data link for queuing like we had before. Data link allows the radars on the ground to share information to the fighters airborne, allowing them to cue their sensors and their visual acuity in an attempt to visually identify the track. At sunset, we were unable to find the track. Also, our radar operators lost the track on radar, and the FAA was never tracking the radar. Therefore, that's why we called it an anomaly, because we weren't able to identify it. Several hours later, overnight, we began seeing an intermittent radar contact east of the position in Montana as it approached Wisconsin. At that point, we developed a game plan once we started seeing another radar contact to go investigate. It's likely, but we have not confirmed that the track that we saw in Wisconsin was likely the same track in Montana. We elected to scramble with the best position to intercept if we needed to engage with the lowest collateral damage, and that was in the eastern portion of Wisconsin, just prior to Lake Michigan, when the fighters became on the track of interest at that time. We monitored the track of interest as it passed over Lake Michigan. We assessed that it was no threat, physical threat, military threat, legal infrastructure. That's my assessment. It continues to be today. However,
Okay, saying really quick here. What they're talking about is there being no threat, right? Let's take a listen to this because it's very important words, because this is something that the head of the Air Force has said in the past with regards to the phenomena. They don't consider it a threat. So if that's what they're kind of saying now from that respect, we have to understand what is the Air Force's current MO with regards to what do they usually say in regards to these situations. And the same dialogue continues. I'll unpause this here.
At this point, we still have an unknown, and it forces a broader discussion about what is this object that's in our U.S. Sovereign airspace. It's within our Federal Aviation Administration airspace, not providing any communications, not providing any notice that could potentially help us deconflict. And therefore, we wanted to investigate further. We did. It tracked across the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We were cleared to engage the target in eastern Upper Peninsula of Michigan, overland, and ultimately down the object at this point, about 15 nautical miles east of the Upper Peninsula in Lake Huron. What we saw is an object that began drifting, potentially most likely landed in Canadian waters in Lake Huron. And we have ongoing recovery operations with Coast Guard assets moving towards this area. I would like to highlight this entire time. I remained in contact with my Canadian boss, General Wayne Air. The Canadians were very supportive. The Canadians launched 2 F-18s plus their tanker as well to support this operation. The fighters were from Madison, Wisconsin, Air National Guard unit. We utilized a tanker from Pittsburgh Air National Guard, and we had an AWACS on station from Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma. That's all I have for my operational update, and I look forward to your questions.
Secretary Dalton, General Van Herk, thank you both. For our first question, we'll go to Associated Press, Tara Kopp.
Hi, thank you very much, both of you, for doing this at this late hour. For Secretary Dalton and for General Van Herk, we've had 4 shoot downs in the last 8 days. Can you talk about the sense of concern you have, and should Americans be worried? This is a very rare thing to have this many shoot downs or any shoot downs over U.S. airspace. And then secondly, General Van Herk, can you give us any indication of what your pilots are seeing and reporting? Thanks.
Hey, before we jump into the question, just a reminder, everyone, please mute your phones. Thank you. Sounds like we have an open mic out there. My apologies. Over to you, ma'am.
Great. Tara, thanks so much for the question and for dialing in also at a late hour. The safety and security of the American people are job number one for us at the Department of Defense and certainly for NORAD and General Van Herk's team. We, following the track of the PRC balloon last week, as I mentioned at the top, we have been more closely scrutinizing our airspace at these altitudes, enhancing our radar, which may at least partly explain the increase in the objects detected. But we also know that there are a range of entities out there, whether they're private companies, research organizations, that operate objects at these altitudes for purposes that are not nefarious, including legitimate research. But because we have not been able to definitively assess what these recent objects are, the president wanted to act out of an abundance of caution to protect our security and our interests. So we will remain vigilant. We have made these enhancements to our radars, and the operations this past week have been successful in bringing down these potential threats. And we are hard at work now recovering the debris to better understand certainly the capabilities of the surveillance balloon from the PRC, but also the nature of these unidentified.
Really quickly, I just want to go ahead and give some special thanks to our viewers out there who are going and supporting Disclosure tonight. We've just got through 3 super chats that came in. This time from Mom Florence Tracy, all the way in the United Kingdom. I know it's late there. Thank you for staying up and being with us this evening. Jonathan Horvat also gave us a couple super chats. The last one saying, yeah, they shot it down and landed it. Yeah. yes to those who said we have even more questions than we started with after the briefing, believe it or not. And yes, clean it up. We do not tolerate foul speech and political nonsense here, nor targeted harassment. Well, the problem's been taken care of. Sometimes people have days. And either way, thanks for your support, and love everybody. Let's get back to this conference.
Objects to better understand, were they surveillance objects? What was their purpose? What are their capabilities? And we look forward to sharing more as we learn more in the coming days.
Thanks, Melissa. Let me just add on. So your question was about citizens being considered. I've assessed all of these to be non-kinetic threats to the homeland. And I don't see that changing even when we recover debris. Every day, NORAD and United States Northern Command are ready to defend her as required. So I think this is a story where we were successful in detecting and if needed to respond. What I would tell you is what we're seeing is very, very small objects that produce a very, very low radar cross section. I'm not going to go into detail about shapes or anything like that, really, because it's really, really difficult for pilots at the altitudes we're operating. It's a very, very slow object in the space,
give us their
if you will,
best
going
guess at least.
the speed of the wind, essentially. And our pilots are going several hundred miles per hour to give us what I would consider a factual, scientific-based description of what we see. And therefore, I'm hesitant to tell you that. With that being said, I would like to talk about the radar and the challenges that we face. Something going this slow. So as Assistant Secretary Dalton talked about, radars essentially filter out information based on speed. So you can set various gates, we call them velocity gates, that allow us to filter out low speed clutter. So if you had radars on all the time that we're looking at anything from 0 speed up to, say, 100, you would see a lot more information. We have adjusted some of those gates to give us better fidelity on seeing slower objects. You can also filter out by altitude. And so with some adjustments, we've been able to get a better categorization of radar tracks now. And that's why I think you're seeing these overall. Plus, there's a heightened alert to look for this information. I hope that adds additional clarification.
Just one quick follow-up. 4 shoot downs in 8 days. When was the last time that U.S. fighters were scrambled and shot something down over U.S. airspace? I can't remember anything. And it just seems like there's a large and quick escalation to shooting down objects.
I'll have to get with our historians. I believe this is the first time within United States of America airspace that NORAD or United States Northern Command has taken kinetic action against an airborne object.
Thank you, Tar. Thank you, sir, ma'am. Let's go to Jen Griffin, Fox News.
Hey, thanks, Pat. This is Liz. I'll be asking for Jen today. Are these balloons that have been shot down since Friday, or are they weather balloons?
You want me to take
Thanks
that?
very much for the question. Yep, go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, so I'm not going to categorize them as balloons. We're calling them objects for a reason. Certainly the event off the South Carolina coast for the Chinese spy balloon, that was clearly a balloon. These are objects. I am not able to categorize how they stay aloft. It could be a gaseous type of balloon inside a structure, or it could be some type of a propulsion system. But clearly, they're able to stay aloft. I would be hesitant to and urge you not to attribute it to any specific country. We don't know. That's why it's so critical to get our hands on these so that we can further assess and analyze what they are.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Nancy Youssef, Wall Street Journal.
Thank you. To both of you, you're saying that their preliminary assessment is that they don't pose a kinetic threat, but that they are objects and not balloons, and that you need to sort of adjust your radar. And I guess I'm trying to get an understanding, what is the the expectation going forward, or at least in the next few days? Is it your plan to continue to shoot?
Again, that they're going to have to adjust the radar everywhere. It's a failure of signals intelligence.
These down, or to make adjustments such that you can make assessments better, that they don't always have to happen when you're shooting something down. I'm trying to get a sense of the adjustment, General Van Herk, that you referred to and what that will look like, practically speaking, in the days ahead. Thank you.
Nancy, thanks for the question. So the expectation going forward is we'll continue to doing our mission exactly like we've been doing now, approaching 65 years for NORAD. If there's an unknown object that enters either Canadian or U.S. airspace, we will go out, we will attempt to identify it. If it's a threat, kinetic threat, military threat, I am delegated the authority if it commits a hostile act or hostile intent. And let me describe hostile act. Hostile act would be shooting a missile, dropping a bomb, taking aggressive action. A hostile intent would be maneuvering to an offensive position against our forces or something like that. In that situation, I'm cleared.
Well, it's clear it's not balloons. It's uncategorized. The plot thickens as the, you know.
Directly to engage without further.
Oh, and by the way, the chat in the back, you should be fine to talk now. I fixed it a while ago. Wes, does it work for you now?
It's working for me. Thank you, sir.
All right, perfect. And sorry if I stressed before. It was crazy.
I would have been stressed too.
I had so many windows up, covering so many different things and jumping back and forth, and I couldn't find the window because it wasn't showing the icon that was making the sound.
You're doing a great job. Don't worry.
Thank you, sir. Oh, and they were like, hey, we got Elon McGinnis giving us another super chat for $2.99. Just a freaking, yeah. I made it too small so I can't see it now. Thank you very much. Fist bump. Boom, boom. Thank you much, sir. Let's go ahead and continue this on.
There is no hostile act or hostile intent, but it is an unknown object. And therefore, we have to have a further discussion across the government, both the government of Canada in some cases and the government of the United States, to assess, is it a risk to national security by passing over key covered facilities such as our missile fields and other structure? Is it a risk to flight safety? Is it a risk to personnel on the ground? And then if you're going to take action, you have to make an assessment of what is the risk of collateral damage to potentially boats and mariners out over the water, our infrastructure, and people on the ground. That's essentially the process you go to and have to go through. And we've done that on each one of these. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to David Martin, CBS.
You say that.
Well, it's the plot thickens as it changes for us to go ahead and identify what the heck is actually these things are, which, well, we still don't know, but it doesn't sound like it's an unconventional aircraft. They can't figure out the propulsion.
So far, I kind of like this, General.
Oh, yeah. I think we all do.
This is the first time we've ever had shoot downs, at least as to the best of your memory. But has any of this happened before the Chinese balloon was discovered? Have there been these unidentified objects which have been tracked for a while and then left U.S. airspace, but have entered and for one reason or another were not, what should I say, prosecuted like you've been doing these, the ones since the Chinese balloon?
Yeah, David, so great question. Thanks for that. So we have scrambled in the past against radar tracks that we've been unable to correlate with fighters. That has happened over years. And sometimes it's attributed to potentially being birds. Sometimes it's been attributed to weather. Sometimes we don't know what to attribute it to. What I would say is you go back and look over time, we've been able to figure out the best way to track various sources, including the high altitude balloons that we've talked about recently back to 2019 and prior, and couple that with our adjustments of our radar, it gives us a better ability to detect and have better domain awareness, as you've heard me talk about. I don't know if Secretary Dalton wants to add anything to that.
Thank you very much, General Van Herk. I would just add to that as we learn more about these objects, and certainly the PRC balloon, we're going to enhance our understanding of the characteristics of them that will perhaps enable us to look back at prior instances that were potentially overlooked or weren't looked closely enough at. To see if there's a comparison to be made there, and certainly will help us going forward to better identify and track these types of objects and balloons.
Have you reached the object that went down off northern Alaska?
David, we're actively searching for that object right now. I've got a Navy P-8, which is surveilling the area with helicopters as well. Once we locate that object, we'll put an Arctic security package in there and begin the analysis and recovery, but we don't have it right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Courtney Cubey, NBC.
Thomas, that's really interesting.
Hi, thanks. How are you so
It's now 3 days later, and they still can't find the one they shot down on over Alaska. That's interesting.
And it's frozen up there.
Exactly. It's not like it would be hard to spot on a frozen piece of water.
Supposedly they haven't found it, right? Or what do you think?
I'm wondering if they thought they shot it down and now they're looking for it and it's not there because they didn't actually shoot these things down.
If that's the case, 100% alien, right?
That would be kind of what I'm wondering. Yeah.
Right. That's kind of crazy. Okay.
Or they got to it before we did.
True.
Yeah. Or it's all part of it. They think they shoot it down. It's crazy on how we've got.
Yeah, I mean, if we're dealing with the phenomenon, how many times have we heard of the phenomenon doing stuff that nobody can anticipate?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's continue on with this conference. It's an interesting situation, to say the least.
confident that the initial balloon was Chinese? Were there some markings on it? I'm trying to figure out why, because from very early on, it seemed that there was a real confidence versus these last three that we can't get any sense of who owns them or what they were doing.
Thanks, Courtney.
Some sort of
know
emergency press briefing that's supposed to take place now.
We have a hot mic out there. Go ahead, Secretary.
Thanks, Courtney. Yeah, thank you. So, Courtney, for the PRC balloon, we had a basis in intelligence to know definitively that its point of origin was the People's Republic of China.
So what I'm struggling with now is these last three that we still are calling objects. We don't know what they are. You knew that the Chinese one was surveilling, and potentially you knew who it belonged to, and yet there was no effort to. There was a decision not to take it down until it was over the ocean. I understand that there was concerns about everything on the ground there, but can someone explain why the decision is made to take these last three unknown objects? We don't know who they belong to. We don't know what they're doing. But I still don't quite understand why the decision was made to literally in succession. It seems like they're being taken down faster and faster and faster. I mean, is there some other concern or threat that you're tracking that is giving a heightened sense of need to take these down?
Courtney, thank you. The process that General Van Herk described earlier in terms of the criteria that we work through to determine whether these objects, or in the case of the PRC balloon, the balloon was a threat. We look to see if it's going to pose a kinetic military threat. In both cases, that was not the case. We look to see, is it surveilling potentially DoD sensitive sites. We knew that was the case in both instances, and it was even more concerning in the case of the PRC balloon because we knew that it was a PRC balloon. We also consider, is it a threat to civilian aviation? In the case of the PRC balloon, it was flying at an altitude that it did not pose a threat to civilian aviation. And so that was part of the criteria for bringing it down over the water when we could safely do so, in addition to its enormous size. It was 200 feet tall. Payload was the size of 3 school buses. And, you know, for these unidentified objects being much smaller, but unfortunately flying at an altitude that did pose a risk potentially to safe civilian aviation, that was part of the criteria that went into deciding to take the objects down over the last 3 days sooner in the tracking cycle. So, you know, that's the process that we have rigorously worked through over the last week. General Van Herk, anything you want to add?
No, Melissa, I think you're right on. I don't have anything to add.
Thank you. Let's go to Brent Dahlberg, Michigan Radio.
Hi, thanks. A missile seems like a particularly destructive weapon to be using if there's a desire to investigate and figure out what these are afterwards. Can you explain why, explain the weapon's choice?
Absolutely. Melissa, if you don't mind, I'll take this one. So, first of all, maintaining a radar track on an object this small is very hard. So, taking a radar shot, such as an AIM-120, would be a lower probability of success. We assessed taking a gunshot yesterday in that event as well as today. And the pilots in each situation felt that that was really unachievable because of the size, especially yesterday in the altitude, and also because of the challenge to acquire it visually because it's so small. It's also potentially a safety of flight issue because you have to get so close to the object before you see it that you potentially could fly into the debris or the actual object. Therefore, in each situation, the AIM-9X, a heat-seeking missile or infrared missile that sees contrast, has been the weapons of choice against the objects which we've been seeing. In each case, we have taken extreme caution to ensure that we limit potential collateral damage. So today, we work closely with the FAA to clear out the airspace. I gave direction specifically to the pilots to use their visual acuity to check for mariners on the ground, airplanes in the air, to clear with their radars as well. And when they were comfortable that we could minimize collateral damage, they selected the best weapon today. That was the AIM-9X, and they took the shot.
Thank you. Let's go to Helene Cooper, New York Times.
Hi, thanks, Pat, and thanks for doing this. This is for General Van Herk. Because you still haven't been able to tell us what these things are that we are shooting out of the sky, that raises the question, have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials? And if so, why? Because that is what everyone is asking us right now.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Helene. I'll let the intel community and the counterintelligence community figure that out. I haven't ruled out anything. At this point, we continue to assess every threat or potential threat unknown that approaches North America with an attempt to identify it.
Thanks.
That wasn't a yes or a no.
In fact, that was actually a pretty much I'm not allowed to answer that question, but I will not lie to you, and I'll just say I can't say.
That's out of my area of command, and especially of what I'm allowed to say and not say, because I'm not an intelligent person. But
yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Because usually it's just a flat out no.
Yeah, and a giggle. There was no laugh.
No giggle, no laugh, no nothing. Yeah.
And in fact, he was saying, "I'm not." What was the exact quote was, "I'm entertaining," or something to the effect of, "I'm entertaining all options," or something like that.
Yeah, let's go back and just hear that again really quick. That's just a really important question and answer, folks, for everyone who's listening, who's still around. Still 924 people. Holy cow.
Wow, thank you, everybody.
753 likes. What a great day so far. If you're having a good time, you haven't subscribed yet, please do us a favor and hit that subscribe. We're understanding people like to watch media, West. and comment on it, bring it together, and that may have to be another chapter in the show going forward. It seems to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oren Lieberman, CNN.
Thanks for doing this. Are you currently tracking other unidentified objects in U.S. airspace? And you've now shot down 3 objects in 3 days. Are we to believe these are the first 3 unidentified objects in U.S. airspace, or do you believe there are dozens or potentially hundreds of other such objects that have flown through U.S. airspace? And have any of these recent objects interfered with pilot sensors? Thank you.
Yeah, for your last question, I'm not going to talk about the sensors and what we've seen. If you don't mind, that needs to come out through the intel communities and what we've seen. I'm not currently tracking any other objects at this point. That doesn't mean there couldn't be more at some point in the future, but right now we're not seeing anything. As far as, why previously, I don't know if there was more. We do know after the fact that there was high altitude balloons because we went back and we were able to reconstruct that. As far as these specific objects at this time, I'm unaware to say. It's certainly possible, but I don't have the fidelity to give you the answer. We will go look at the data to see if we can figure anything out about the potential for not seeing these previously.
Hey, Thomas,
Let's go to Phil Stewart. Phil Stewart, Reuters.
Yeah.
I just thought it was important to highlight again when the guy asked about sensor anomalies and what they looked like, the general again said, sorry, that's not my not what I'm allowed to talk about. You have
He
to
almost sounded irritated that she asked him that too, kind of like he was his answer was very quick and like he sounded almost kind of bothered, or maybe it was just me.
Yeah, I think he's a straight shooter and he doesn't like these questions that he knows answers to, but he can't answer.
And you know what? The press needs to ask more and more and more. This is like, oh God, this is like, well, I wouldn't call it D-Day for us, but it's Disclosure Day, a step towards disclosure that we've been waiting to kind of see, and things are happening.
Yep.
There's stupid practices of hiding the signals intelligence from all the people who should be paying attention to it. Is out of the cat's out of the bag. Let's see where. Hopefully, everybody just doesn't forget about this going forward. But my God, an amazing day.
Yeah.
Hey there. I just want to double check what exactly. I know you talked about the fact that we weren't looking for slower speed aircraft and that these objects had a lower radar cross section. But could you just kind of explain to us what makes these objects in particular more difficult to track, or why you weren't tracking them before? And then I guess the other question I think everybody's kind of wondering is, now that you've tweaked everything, should the American public be expecting, lots more shoot downs? Thanks.
Thanks, Phil. What makes them really hard to detect and track is their size and potentially shape. We'll get our hands on them at some point. I can't confirm that right now, but that could certainly play a role or a factor in this. As far as going forward, I'll go back to my mission is to defend our homeland in both my NORAD and NORTHCOM hat. Anything that approaches North America, if it's unknown, I'm going to go identify it and assess, is it a threat? If it is a threat, I'll shoot it down. If it's not a threat, the kinetic military threat that we talked about earlier, it's not committing a hostile act or hostile intent, then we'll have a broader discussion. Your second part of that is really about what are we going to do in the future is really a policy decision. I'll ask Secretary Dalton if she wants to add anything.
I'd only add again that the safety and security of the American people is job number one for us. And for any of these operations, we fine-tune them to ensure that there's going to be little to no collateral damage. None of the operations over the last week have resulted in collateral damage.
But Secretary Dalton, could you just explain then, do we expect that there's been a policy decision that will lead us to near daily shoot downs as we detect these things more and more?
Phil, thank you. We are taking this very much on a case-by-case basis. Each operation has been different. And we will certainly keep you updated as we continue to learn more about these objects and the PRC balloon and what that means for us going forward.
Thank you. Let's go to Ben Brash, Washington Post.
Thank you very much, both, for taking the time. More directly, and in reference to the last question, is it our policy or a preference of the United States government still to not shoot down anything over U.S. territory? When is it that you make that call? I know you talked about assessing if anything was a kinetic threat, but is it policy or preference? Thank you very much.
The policy is to defend the United States and its sovereign territory and airspace. Full stop.
Thank you. We have time for just a few more. Let's go to Dimitri Sevaspalo, Financial Times.
Thanks very much, Pat. Two questions. At this point, are you able to assess that the three objects over Alaska, Yukon, and Lake Huron, are they similar objects as far as you can tell? And then secondly, the Biden administration has said that it realized this was a problem last year. It briefed Congress in August. So I'm curious, why didn't you recalibrate the gateways on the radar systems earlier if you knew that Chinese balloons were an issue at that point?
Yeah, let me talk about this. So the way I would characterize similar, they're similar in size, similar in speeds that go with the wind on these objects that we've seen. As far as specific shapes, we've got to get our hands on those to see fidelity of detail of shape, how they get airborne, do they have propulsion? All of those things are still to be determined. Your second part of that question, remind me what that was.
So you said that recently the reason you may be detecting more things is you recalibrated or changed.
Just want to give a little reminder, wow, you look at that, we're already at 4,925 subs. We're only 75 subs away from our last goal of hitting 5,000 subs. If you're watching, having a good time, do me a favor, hit that subscribe. Love to have you as a regular subscriber here on Disclosure tonight. And if you're a regular subscriber, you dig our broadcast, make sure you check that bell to make sure that you are subscribed.
The thresholds for gateways on the radar systems. I wonder, given that you briefed, not you, but the administration briefed Congress on the Chinese balloon program last August, why were gateways not changed back then?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The timing of the intel and adjustments, what I would say is we didn't necessarily see a need to change them then. The Chinese high altitude balloon alerted us to the speed, the slowness, and being able to detect. We decided to do that at that time. I hope that makes sense to you.
And I would just add,
given that there were questions about the program, as early as August last year, and those balloons were flying at those kind of speeds then, was there not a discussion about changing the gateways back then?
I can perhaps help here as well. So the briefings to Congress last year were done, I believe, through intelligence channels. And again, that was intelligence that was better understood retrospectively based on elements of the equation that were discovered after the fact. And then the high altitude balloon from the PRC that was shot down last weekend was categorically different than the prior high altitude balloons because it transited the entire continental United States, starting with Alaska, across Canada, and across CONUS. And so it was quite different than the prior instances. And on that basis, we determined that we needed to enhance our radar.
Thank you.
We've got time for just two more questions here. We'll go to Peter Martin, Bloomberg.
Hey, thanks very much for doing this. I wanted to ask, has Secretary Austin talked yet with Wei Fenghe from the PRC about the first balloon? And then in addition, has DoD communicated with the Chinese military at any level about any of these subsequent objects? Thank you.
Thank you. There have been contacts made with the PRC on the high altitude balloon.
Okay, thank you very much. And final question will go to Brian Everstein, Aviation Week.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this. Back to the discussion on the AIM-9X. Can you talk about what about these objects gave off enough heat signature for the IR seeker without any sort of propulsion system? And secondly, the F-16 presumably has a targeting pod. I assume you had eyes on from other aircraft. Will the Pentagon be releasing any of these images?
I'll let policy decide on the images. That's not mine. But the AIM-9X, first, I would make an assumption there wasn't a propulsion system, or there was. What I would say is what you have is a contrast between the environment and the objects themselves, which gives often IR contrast, which allows the missile to track, and that's been very, very effective for the AIM-9X. Melissa, over to you on the releasing of photos.
Thank you. We absolutely want to be transparent about our military operations and what we are learning about these objects and the PRC high altitude balloon, and hope to share more in the coming days.
My apologies. I had one last question here to Nick Slayton, task and purpose, and that will be our final question.
Thank you. I wanted to see, when we talk about investigating the debris of this, who's taking the lead on that? Is that the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office? And then also, we've seen free shoot downs in 3 days. If this was to continue, if this pace of operations was to continue, is that proving to be would that be a strain on units, or are all units able to handle these kind of rapid scramblings in that regard? Thank you.
Melissa, you want that, or you want me to take it?
You go right ahead. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So as far as the recovery lead, technically, the FBI has the lead under counterintelligence authorities. They are embedded with DoD because we have the resources to enable them to conduct the operations. In Canada, the Canadians have the lead. Their Royal Canadian Mounted Police are embedded with their Canadian Special Operations Forces, and we have the FBI forces as well, liaison with them to make sure that we're sharing as much info as possible.
Thank you.
Secretary Dalton, General Van Herk, thank you both very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have for this evening. Thank you again for joining us. We will be posting a transcript to defense.gov once it's available.
Wow, Thomas.
You're just listening in there to the Pentagon press briefing here as we...
Yeah.
I want to point out one thing that you might want to bring that video back up that you were showing us earlier of the IR footage of the object after the commercial plane flew over.
Yeah.
Because what he just said about the IR signature,
that's the other one.
He didn't say it was giving off heat. He said that there was significant contrast on IR for the missile to lock on. And what you pointed out in your video here was that the IR was indicating that the objects were extremely cold, and that's why they were showing up, right?
Right. That's the only reason why they were showing up.
And based on what he just said about the missile locks they were getting, he didn't specify that the objects were hot. He just said that they were high contrast.
Right. Exactly.
So the objects were cold.
Well, they could be either one.
Okay.
He left it open-ended.
Yeah. This is just an object. Again, these are from a local ufologist who's done some amazing work as a matter of UAPX. Dave Mason is a great guy, and it's just great footage to look at and everything. I mean, even he's just got some amazing work that he's done and what he did to make stuff happen in what do you call it, for a tear in the sky. It really wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for a lot of his equipment that was brought along, because nobody had any except Dave. Well, this is that UFO we've got over there. Yep, absolutely great stuff. Let's jump. Let me pull this out of the purview here. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, Wes, to see where this is going to go, where it's going to head. What are we going to have tomorrow?
Yeah.
Seriously. We had one going one day after the next. You think there'll be one tomorrow?
Probably. I'm beginning to think we need to do a bingo map over the United States and Canada, and you could place your bets on where the next shoot down will be.
Yeah, there are a bunch of UFO bingo boards out there, but we may have to There's got to be something for an online bingo game, but we'd have to go ahead and make up our own tiles and then select the different things that actually happen and let people play along. And, you know, we got to have some fun. But yeah, interesting situation to say the least. I appreciate you hanging out on this all day. Yeah, I woke up this morning with a whole bunch of things from you saying, oh, shit, why the hell did I sleep in? I needed it, but it was like, wow, you wake up and it's a full day of news to talk about. Again, I mean, we had the crazy up until the point the Super Bowl was going, we had 1,428 people watching the show. It pittered off a little bit when the whole Super Bowl kickoff happened, but even during halftime show, there's still a lot of people interested in seeing what it's all going. But
thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and I appreciate everybody coming out. Again, if you're having a good time, do us a favor, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't, go ahead and give us a thumbs down and tell us what we can do better besides audio, some other things. We try to do our best here. But remember, we're just a small team of people who work all over the place around the world for this matter. Gary in the United Kingdom, we've got West in the Southwest, Larry in the Pacific Northwest. We've got some people on the East Coast all over the place in the United States, and it's great to have everybody's help and attention and information, because it wouldn't be for any of this and if it wasn't just about the viewers, like all the people who have been watching this show, everything today. I think this about covers everything, doesn't it, West?
Yeah, I feel like we've got a good show for today. I'm feeling a little spent myself.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Cupcake here actually sleeping on her dog bed that I put on top of an upside down laundry basket. Yes, if you're having a good time, yes, please subscribe. We'd love to have you. Look it up, the 4,951. Only 49 more subs to go, and we'll hit 5,000. Wow, didn't think it'd be happening so quick, but what a great day. And every day, we're going to try and, focus more on content along these lines, because there's a lot of great stuff to watch, a lot of stuff to take in, but then it also gives us an opportunity as an audience and as anyone who wants to join in. That's why it's called viewer call-in, is anyone wants to come in, they just have something to say. You have a question, you want to hang out and talk about it. That's what we're about here at Disclosure Tonight. It's this format we've been working on for almost a couple of years now. And we're making a difference. Look at that, 4,954 subs already. Let me go ahead and throw that in the upper corner of the window. I am just so pleased and happy from everyone going ahead and joining into this whole conversation on that matter. I need to go ahead and find that list, because it's around here somewhere. Give me a second. I want to go ahead and thank all the great people who, I'm gonna do this in reverse order here today, since we've got a lot of people still out there in the chat right now. I want to go ahead, first of all, and thank the live chat for all the people who are still in there right now. I'm sure it's going to be a long list, but you know what? It's going to be worth it to go through every single person we got out there. Let's go ahead and see. It can't be too long now, is it? Let's find out. All right. I want to thank Ak, our producer in the back.
Thank you.
All right. Adela Mark Bromley, Ahmed Astkin, Andrew Davies, Anon, Augustus 816, Aviam Asman, BD Gruns, it's BD Gaines, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're a new mod here today. Ben A, Bill Kranz, Bruce Mastiff, Carl, Channel Warhorse. I mean, it's a little bit bigger, so it's easier to see. Channel Warhorse, Craig Williams, Curtis Bartel. Let's see. Dasm 176, David H. Altman, David Worski, Dave Skeen 100, DC, Dennis Benke, Detroit Deadpool, Digger Dog, Diane, Delphina, Electra, RC, also known as Zach, all the way from down under, Eli McGinnis, thanks for pouring one for all of us, and thanks for that wonderful super chat as well. Empty, Everything UFOs, Ingrid Cole, Jackie Redford, Jan, Jason Brown, Jason Parker, Jay Burke, Joe Monk, Joke Score, Jason 80 Maynard, Julio C. There we go. KK Nichols, Last of the Finest. Lazy Gamer, how you doing, Last of the Finest? You just joined in as well. Lazy Gamer, Lily Pond, Little Torch Apache, Mac Guffin, Marcus Mandel, Matthew Bullock, Metal Gaming, Michael Cran, Michael Padilla, Mississippi, Martian, wow, the name goes on. Mr. Catfish 2100, Otavian Black, Our Ranch Airgun Fun Channel, good to see you, Brian. Owen from Ohio, Paradigm Theory, it's good to see you, Patrick Fogarty. Keep those furnaces going. Peace, Florida, Peggy with Crockett and Tubbs. Hey, Google, what's the temperature in Florida?
In Miami, it's currently 66 degrees.
Beautiful temperature. High of 75, low and 55 in Florida. Glad to see that you can make it here today as well. Peggy with Crockett and Tubbs. Are You Crazy? Rug Ops, Steve Sanders, Shelley Montgomery. Spaced Out Radio's even here. Good to see you, Dave Syrup, Terrence, Thor Panchow, Tom King, Tony Walker, Tony C, W. Decker, Xavier Gamer, and Yellow Tommy Tanker, also known as Andy. And some other people will pop in at the end of this list. Would you look at that? I missed the super chat. Coming at the end from, believe it or not, Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio. This is Jay Burke's Cheap Shot on my show. No, we're not doing a cheap shot on your show. Oh, this is for Jay Burke's Cheap Shot on my show. Well, he was watching. That's not saying anything. Yes, Mississippi Martian, Jay Burke, BD Gaines. I think that's everybody. Detroit Deadpool, if I missed you, I want to thank everybody for coming out. And we just had someone pop in at the last minute before we're getting this out of here. 4,963 subs. Would you look at that? I am just so thankful for 4,964 subs for everybody's love and attention. Last to the finest, you are a military, you're a veteran, you're someone who's been around today. Just quick, really, before we cut this off, how are you seeing about this, my friend? What's your thoughts on this?
Well, it appears to me that I think maybe that the U.S. has been planning some way to get one of these things for intruding on our airspace, because they do have all of these radar stations all around the world. And I think maybe they've been trying to develop a plan to get one of these things.
Right.
So I think maybe today it maybe had found some success in the plan. Right. So that's my take on it, because, they had all of this data about, they knew where they would come in and go out. And the trick was to find a way to stop them, right, or to take them out. And I think maybe they've developed a plan to find its Achilles heel. That's just my take on it. I mean,
I hear you.
That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming in. Give us that. It's been a great day today. If anything is for disclosure, it's brought a lot of this to light. And you know what? The community of everyone within, if you want to call it, the media, is finally starting to ask the hard questions to the Pentagons that they actually need at this point. We need to be pushing it. There's some great quotes out there from a lot of different people in the media. We're going to go ahead and grab them, is because, you know what? They are going to come in so handy for everything that's going on. Holy cow. That's right. Shelley Montgomery, keep it talking, everyone. We need to. There's a lot of good questions that are coming across, as Ak, our producer in the back again says, thank you and everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out today. It's been one heck of a show, and it's not just about the people in the chat. It's we've gotten a lot of great people in the back who have come around and talking in the show. We've had let me get the other music up. Where did that go?
I was also going to say, did you happen to notice the way the Canadian Defense Minister was acting when she was describing this thing being shot down? She looked kind of excited.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. It's finally we can get to this point and start talking about it, and it's things that we can go ahead and literally start pushing this conversation forward, because something big happens, you know what? Everybody's getting their eyes open to it. And we heard it today. It's not a balloon. It's not a balloon. It's not a balloon. Okay, you hear that, Mick West? They're telling you, buddy, it's not a balloon. There may be something inside of it. They don't know what it is. They don't know what's propelling it. They're going to have to figure all of this stuff out. It's the best place we could possibly be. And on that note, thank you for coming in at the end here, last of the finest. Appreciate you being here around today.
Super fun.
Yes, I am so indebted to your service to the country and what you're still trying to bring out now. Thank you for coming here today. Love to have you back more often.
Thank you.
Absolutely. W. Decker, thanks for pulling me out of bed this morning and getting this whole thing going. Holy cow.
Hey, my pleasure. This has been another amazing day, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And thanks again to the chat and all the new viewers. We definitely appreciate having you here.
Yeah, isn't it just particular when we fix this here?
And of course, thanks to Gary and the rest of the panel. Larry,
oh, God, yeah.
Here.
Gary's right there.
Thank you.
Yes, Gary's tired. I'm tired. We're missing the Super Bowl, but that's all right. This is a phenomenal thing going on. We'll get to it as the audience pitters off and we finish off this thing. But more importantly, we've had not just a lot of great people in the back. Larry Gerndt, you're there as well.
Yes, I fell asleep, but I'm back. And I just wanted to say that thank you very much for that excellent coverage.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. As we're getting up, look at this. We're at 4,974. Just 26 more subs and we'll be at 5,000. I never thought we'd be hitting it so soon, but you know what? We're going to keep on doing what we do here at Disclosure tonight because, you know, we care about this, and this is an important topic for all of us. It's something I've been involved with for a long time, whether I like it or not, since the age of 5, and I'm here to try and for us to find the truth for all of us, which means bringing the entire community together. Whether people, you know, deny it, people who believe in it, there's one thing we have in common. We all don't trust the government, and we can hear this is where we need to get all of these facts from where it needs to go.
So, Thomas, I think we should actually say thank you to the U.S. government for shooting down so many objects this week and helping Thomas's subscriber count.
Oh, I want to see this go. I want to see not just for subscribers. I just want to see Disclosure move forward.
Exactly.
I want to see it all go because the bigger we get, the more of a message the message we can bring across, the stronger of a voice we have, and it's us as a community from the entire place that we have to come together. We do have to watch out for the trolls sometimes, yes, but that's all right. I am so blessed by everybody. And Syrup, thanks for coming in again today, my friend.
No, thank you. You know, I can barely operate my iPhone, so I can only imagine how hard it is to do what you guys do.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much.
And something to keep in mind, too, is we haven't recovered yet, so there's still going to be a lot more questions there.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. How about you, Gary? Do you have a good day today, my friend?
It's just started. I only woke up halfway through the show.
We went up one, then we went down one. Somehow we got someone who didn't. That's all right, watching everything live as it goes on. And as always, one more thing, I want to thank all the people who supported Disclosure tonight today with Super Chats. There's a long list of people I'm going to go through here right now as well in reverse order to make it easy for me. Let's go ahead and bring that up, and I want to thank specifically, let's take the music and amp it up a little bit more. I want to thank Mr. Catfish 2100, Spaced Out Radio, Eli McGinnis. These are all supporters of Disclosure tonight on tonight's broadcast. Jonathan Horvat, Florence Tracy, thank you much, Mom. Appreciate you coming out and being a part of the show today with you and Adele and Mark. It's great to have the family here. Jonathan Horvat, David, Jonathan Horvat again, and Ant-Man again. Susan Goes Time Traveling Pangolins, Jonathan Horvat again, Larry Gern, Nikki X1. This is the 12th, yeah. Johnny Santana, Neo Cal, Jan, of course, thank you very much. Jenny Novak, wow, Matthew Bullock, Mr. Catfish 2100 again, Royal Morning Blue, Wildcat Mahone, Constantine Dante, Ant-Man again, Mr. Catfish 21, that's it. So starting off with Ant-Man today, appreciate all the love and support from everybody. I am truly blessed and thankful for everyone being here, and I look forward to see where we can take this to, what's going to happen, and more importantly, remember, we'll be on tomorrow again, 7 p.m. Pacific, Monday night. Look forward to catching you there. And as we usually say at the end of every one of our broadcasts, crank up the music, eyes open, no fear, be safe, everyone, and go
back to Party City where you belong.
Absolutely. We'll catch you on the flip side. Good night, everybody. We'll love you. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.